Classic Tuesday, right? Let me back up. My name's Luke, and I used to be a farmer. Nice, simple life. Growing cabbages, grinding wheat, handing over a chunk of everything I earned to the Lord, another chunk to the church, and keeping just enough to stay alive and miserable. Want to catch a fish? Ask the Lord. Want to use the mill? Pay the Lord. Want to use the oven? Better hope the Lord's in a good mood. Basically, everything belonged to that guy except the air I breathed, and I'm pretty sure he was working on taxing that too. Then the kingdom decided it was wartime. My plow became a sword, my field became a battlefield, and my life expectancy dropped faster than a rock off a cliff. But hey, I had one thing going for me. A rusty, beat-up chainmail vest. 20 pounds of, please don't kill me, strapped to my chest. And honestly, it worked. I survived a few fights. I was feeling pretty good about myself. Then some absolute maniac with a mace caved my skull in. Lights out. Game over. Thanks for playing. Except, not really. Because somehow I woke back up in this guy's body. Different me, same ugly corpse-covered battlefield. The old Luke was gone, and the new Luke, that's me, was standing there thinking, well, this is awkward. I didn't exactly stick around for a group hug with the enemy. I looted some bread, jerky, and a third of a salt fish off the dead guys. Sorry, fellas. You weren't using them. Grabbed an axe and a shield, and ran like my life depended on it. Because it literally did. I ran and ran until I stumbled into this ridiculously beautiful place. Picture this. Emerald green meadows, a crystal clear stream, sky so blue it looked fake, fluffy white clouds, deer just vibing by the water like they were posing for a painting. Meanwhile, I'm standing there covered in blood and rust, smelling like a blacksmith's armpit, absolutely ruining the aesthetic. I face-planted at the stream and drank like I'd never seen water before. Then I inhaled my last piece of jerky and finally looked around properly. Mountains, forests, river, not a single human in sight. The deer stared at me like I was the weird one. Fair enough. That's when I made my big decision. I'm not going back. Why would I? To go be some lord's punching bag again? To grow cabbages I can't even eat? No thank you. This random wilderness is my home now. Luke's Wilderness Resort, population, 1 idiot with an axe. I took stock of my worldly possessions. 1 sword, 1 dagger, 1 axe, 1 pickaxe thing, 1 shield, and a fire striker. That's it. That's the whole empire. Bill Gates, eat your heart out. First order of business, dinner. I spotted some rabbits nearby and thought, how hard can it be? Very hard, it turns out. Those fuzzy little jerks are fast. But I'm smarter than a rabbit. Probably. So I dug a pit, rigged up a snare trap with bindi branches and vine rope, scattered some tasty-looking roots as bait, and hid like the apex predator I definitely am. Then I waited, and got eaten alive by mosquitoes while waiting. Super dignified. Finally, the rabbit came back. It sniffed around, checked for danger, nibbled some grass casually. The whole, I'm totally not about to walk into an obvious trap, routine. And then snap. The vine snagged its back legs, the branch whipped up, and suddenly there's a rabbit dangling in the air like a furry piñata. I punched the air. First trap ever built, first catch ever made. I am basically a survival god. Then I walked to the stream to clean my kill, looked down into the water, and saw about 50 fat fish just swimming around right there. Right there. The whole time, I spent hours outsmarting a rabbit when I could have just grabbed a fish with my bare hands. My IQ left the chat. Anyway, I caught some fish too because I'm nothing if not adaptable, lit a campfire as the sun went down, and roasted my rabbit over the flames. Birds were singing somewhere in the distance, the fire was crackling, and I sat there chewing tough bunny meat, feeling simultaneously proud and profoundly lonely. But you know what? This is my fresh start. No lords, no taxes, no wars, no mace-wielding psychopaths. Just me, the wilderness, and my questionable survival instincts. What could possibly go wrong? Let me tell you something nobody warns you about when you decide to live off the land. The land fights back. With bugs. My first night in paradise. Absolute nightmare. Mosquitoes treated my face like an all-you-can-eat buffet. I wrapped myself up tighter than a burrito, and they still got me. Woke up looking like a lumpy potato. And the crawling things? Oh, the crawling things. Fire kept most of them away, but some brave little soldiers snuck into my clothes anyway. Then, around midnight, I felt something wiggling across my face. Half asleep, I grabbed it. A centipede. A finger-length centipede was taking a casual stroll across my cheek, probably house hunting for my nostril. I yeeted that thing into the fire so fast it didn't even have time to file a complaint. Then I lay there wide awake, imagining every itch was another one. Slept maybe 20 minutes total. 5 stars, would not recommend. Dawn hit, and I had exactly one thought in my brain. I need a roof over my head right now. But first, tools. Because of course I can't just build something. No, I need to build the thing that builds the thing. I needed a shovel. Can't dig a foundation without a shovel. Can't have a house without a foundation. Can't sleep without a house. Can't live without sleep. It's a whole chain of problems, and I'm at the bottom holding an axe and a bad attitude. So I found a nice hard tree, spat on my palms like a real manly man, and started chopping. You know how in movies someone chops a tree and it falls in like 3 swings? Yeah, that's a lie. I hacked at this thing until the sun climbed over the mountain. My arms were screaming. The tree was roughly thigh thickness, and it fought me the whole way down. Split it on a rock, shaved off the bark, carved out a shovel shape with my knife. 3 hours. 3 whole hours to make one wooden shovel. I held it up to the sunlight like it was Excalibur. You beautiful thing, I whispered to a stick. This is what my life has become. But honestly, that shovel worked great. Light, smooth, got the job done. I was genuinely proud. I've peaked as a human being, and it's a wooden shovel. My parents would be so confused. I marked out a plot for a temporary shelter, about 10 by 14 feet. Nothing fancy, just enough room for a bed, a table, and a fireplace. Basically a medieval studio apartment. The topsoil was a nightmare to break through, all hard and stubborn, but once I got past that crust, the deeper dirt was soft and cooperative. The shovel held up like a champ. I got about a third of it cleared before my stomach started yelling at me. Lunchtime. I carved a pointy stick, fancy spear, very professional, and waded into the stream to catch fish. Now, remember yesterday when I felt stupid for not fishing sooner? Today the fish made me feel like a genius and an idiot at the same time. These fish have clearly never met a human before. They were literally bumping into my legs. Just bonking right into me like, oh hello, what's this big warm thing? I tried grabbing them with my hands, and they slipped away every time like wet bars of soap. Humbling. Very humbling. A fish outsmarted my fingers. So I used the spear, and suddenly I was a fishing god. 1 stab, 1 fish. Every single time. I pulled out 5 fat ones and called it quits before I got greedy. While the fish roasted, completely plain, no salt, no seasoning, tasting like hot disappointment, I had a brilliant idea. Why not carve a big wooden spike to loosen soil? Like a giant pointy stick for stabbing the earth? Made one in about 2 minutes. Sometimes my brain actually works. Then the deer came back for their evening drink. And I noticed something. The big male had these gorgeous 3-foot antlers, and my brain immediately went full shopping mode. Antlers equal digging tools. Deer hide equals boots and clothes. Deer meat equals real food. Deer tendons equal bowstring. Deer bones equal better tools. Basically, a deer is a walking hardware store with legs. I stared at those antlers the way a kid stares at candy. The lead doe looked at me and made a little noise, probably thinking, oh, it's that smelly, upright creature again. How harmless. Lady, if you only knew what I was imagining doing to your boyfriend's head accessories. But good news from the deer visit. If they're hanging around this casually, it means there's nothing big and toothy lurking nearby. No wolves, no bears, no things that eat Luke for breakfast, at least for now. I also noticed the deer munching on some red berries I'd never seen before. My logic, if the deer eat them and don't die, I probably won't die either. Probably. Science. I finished all 5 fish, bland as cardboard, but I was hungry enough to eat my own shovel, rubbed my round belly, and got back to digging. The glamorous life of a wilderness pioneer, everybody. It's just bugs, dirt, fish slime, and talking to shovels. My new 3-tool system was actually kind of genius, if I do say so myself. Pickaxe breaks the hard stuff, big pointy stick loosens the deep stuff, shovel scoops it all out. Boom. Teamwork, except all 3 team members are sticks and the manager is an exhausted man talking to himself. By sunset, the foundation was done. Thigh deep, beautiful, a real hole in the ground. I stood there admiring it like it was a swimming pool at a 5-star resort. Magnificent, I said to nobody, because nobody exists here except me and some judgmental deer. Speaking of deer, I followed them to their berry spot, and came back with a helmet full of those red fruits. A whole helmet. That's my bowl now. My military-grade salad bowl. The berries were actually pretty good, nice and firm. Plenty of them, too. Things were looking up. I smoked out the mosquitoes with some wormwood-looking plant, made my little rabbit fur grass pillow, crawled into my luxury pit, and slept like the dead. Then morning came, and my brain decided to ruin everything. I'm standing there staring at my beautiful hole, chewing a berry, when it hits me. A foundation is supposed to be filled back in and packed flat, so you can build on top of it. I just spent an entire day digging a hole that I'd need to fill back up, to use properly. I am an architect of stupidity. 2 options: fill it back in and do it right, or improvise. Fill it back in? After I spent all day digging? My back said absolutely not. My pride said absolutely not. My everything said absolutely not. New plan. Just build a roof directly over the pit. Live in the hole. Become a whole person. It'll be ugly, but at least I won't be sleeping under the stars getting face-kissed by centipedes anymore. So I grabbed my axe and went tree shopping. Picked 5 thick ones. You know what's fun? Chopping down 5 trees in a row. You know what's not fun? Carrying 5 trees one by one back to your hole. My shoulders wanted a divorce from my body. I cut a doorway on the south side, 1 person wide, very exclusive, VIP only, and set up 2 vertical posts with angled beams on top, plus a ridge beam across the middle. Basic A-frame shape, like drawing the Chinese character 4, roof, but with logs and regret. Then reality punched me again. How do I hold this together? No nails, no screws, no hardware store, no anything. Vines. Too flimsy. Duct tape? Hasn't been invented yet, which is honestly the worst thing about the medieval period. I tried the caveman method. Chisel holes into the logs with my pickaxe and knife, then hammer smaller wooden pegs through them. Then I split the pegs and jammed another peg in crosswise for extra grip. Double peg action. It took forever. By the time I finished connecting 5 logs together, the sun was setting and I'd accomplished what a modern person could do in 20 minutes with a drill. But I wasn't stopping. Not tonight. I needed that roof done. I needed about 20 arm-thick poles laid side by side across the frame. So I marched into the forest with my axe, a torch, and pure stubbornness. The forest at night is a whole experience. Birds screaming, bugs doing their little symphony in the leaves, darkness so thick you could chew it. And there's me, the one flickering torch moving through it all like a lost firefly with an anger problem. Chop a tree, drag it down the hill. Chop another tree, drag it down. 20 times. 20 times. By moonlight, I laid them all across the frame. 10 minutes for the easy part after hours of the hard part. Story of my life. I collapsed in my pit house. Yeah, I'm calling it a house now. Don't judge me. Looked up at my rough, bark-covered ceiling and smiled. It's ugly. It's barely functional. But it's mine, and nothing is crawling on my face tonight. Then I dreamed about food. Real food. Juicy, rich, seasoned meat dripping with flavor. I could smell it, taste it, feel the grease on my fingers. It was glorious. Then I woke up and ate a plain berry. Cool. Thanks, brain. Very helpful dream. My body was wrecking me. Days of hard labor fueled by nothing but unseasoned fish and fruit was catching up fast. And I realized the big problem. I had 0 salt. No salt in the fish, no salt in the berries, no salt anywhere. My muscles were cramping. Everything tasted like wet nothing. And I knew if I didn't find salt soon, I was going to be in real trouble. But where do you find salt in the middle of nowhere with no map, no knowledge, and no Google? You follow the deer. Obviously. Those beautiful, dumb, antlered tour guides have been living here way longer than me. They drink at the same spot every day. They eat at the same berry bushes. They definitely have a salt source somewhere. Deer need minerals too. All I have to do is stalk them like the totally not creepy wilderness man I am. Morning came. I geared up, sword and pickaxe, left the chainmail at home, and waited. The lead doe showed up right on schedule, glanced at me standing in the distance like a weirdo, and basically shrugged. 3 days of me being harmless had earned her trust. She had no idea I was about to follow her like a nature documentary cameraman. They finished drinking, turned around, and headed into the forest on the other side. And I tiptoed after them, a 6-foot man trying to be sneaky behind a bunch of deer. Operation Salt Hunt. Begin. Operation Salt Hunt was a smashing success. Well, a licking success, technically. I followed the deer for about half an hour, carving little marks into trees with my sword so I wouldn't get lost and die like an idiot. They led me to another mountain stream, and then the lead doe walked up to a rock and just started licking it. Just tongue on stone, full commitment, no shame. The whole herd took turns. Like a salt-flavored lollipop for deer. My eyes nearly popped out of my skull. Salt deposit. Those beautiful, dumb, magnificent animals led me straight to a salt mine. In the wilderness, salt is basically gold. No, salt is better than gold. You can't season a fish with gold. Well, you can, but it tastes terrible and you chip a tooth. I waited politely for the deer to finish their rock-licking session, then sprinted over and started hammering away with my pickaxe. Obviously, I skipped the part of the rock 20 deer tongues had been on. I have standards. Low standards, but standards. Dug around and found 2 actual chunks of saltstone. I almost cried. Almost. Manly wilderness men don't cry. We just get dust in our eyes a lot. Now, I'm smart enough to know raw salt rock is probably toxic. But how to actually turn it into edible salt? No clue. Zero. My knowledge of chemistry begins and ends with, fire makes things hot. I grabbed my 2 chunks and headed home to figure it out later. On the way back, I took a shortcut because I'm efficient like that. Then I smelled something awful. Not poop awful. Rotting meat awful. The kind of smell that crawls up your nostrils and sets up permanent residence in your brain. I found the source, a dead deer. Very dead. Extremely dead. Legs gone. Guts gone. Just a sad pile of hide, antlers, and scraps with flies throwing a house party on top. Its dried-out eyeballs were staring at the sky like it was having one last existential crisis. Did the corpse freak me out? Please. I've crawled over actual human battlefields. This was a Tuesday for me. What did freak me out was the implication. Something killed this deer. Something with teeth and appetite and absolutely no table manners. So much for no predators in the area. My whole reason for settling here was the lack of things that could eat me. And now there's evidence of things that definitely eat deer, which are bigger than me. But the herd is still strutting around in broad daylight. So whatever did this probably isn't a constant threat. Silver lining. Thin silver lining. The kind of silver lining that still has teeth marks in it. Anyway, waste not, want not. I grabbed the antlers, obviously. And the skin. Yes, the rotting, maggot-covered, stinking deer skin. I am not too proud for this. Out here, a piece of leather is a piece of leather, even if it smells like the inside of Satan's gym bag. I dragged it home on my sword like the most disgusting sled ever invented. Back at base camp, priorities shifted. Dead predator deer meant I needed to finish the house fast. No more sleeping in an open pit like a human appetizer platter. I started mixing mud, crushed dirt, stream water, a little straw, mush it all together. Then I smeared it between the roof logs to seal the gaps. Back and forth, carrying handfuls of mud like a very tired, very dirty waiter. Then, halfway through, I slapped my own forehead so hard I left a mud handprint on my face. The shield. My shield. Round, 16 inches across. Basically a perfect mud-carrying bowl. And I'd been using my hands this whole time like some kind of animal. I had been outsmarted by my own equipment for the 3rd day in a row. Shield as bucket changed everything. Finished the mud work in no time. Then I tackled the deer hide. Peeling off the rotten parts, burying them, scrubbing the rest with sand, delicately scraping off tiny bits of fat with my knife. Too hard, and you rip the leather. Too soft, and you accomplish nothing. It's like the world's worst spa treatment. For a dead animal. That smells like a dumpster in July. I washed it in the stream and laid it on the roof to dry alongside the mud. Tanning leather is something I vaguely remember doing once in my old life. Badly, because the Lord didn't let us hunt anything. Even a wild chicken belonged to him. Even a chicken. That man owned chickens he'd never even met. Meanwhile, the salt situation. I crushed the salt stone, boiled it in my helmet, which is now a pot, a bowl, and a berry basket, and waited. First boil, nothing. Second boil, nothing. I was starting to panic. If this didn't work, my backup plan was wood ash, which technically has some salt-like minerals and is also what desperate people resort to. Third boil, finally. Half a helmet of cloudy, brownish salt water. It looked disgusting. It looked like puddle water from a construction site. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I also caught a wild chicken in the forest and roasted it for dinner, because apparently today was my lucky day. rotting deer corpses notwithstanding. As night fell, I blocked the doorway with rocks, left a gap at the top for air, lit a fire inside my little pit house, and for the first time in days, actually felt safe. The darkness outside was creepy enough to star in a horror movie, but inside my ugly, mud-sealed, barely standing wooden box, with the fire crackling and the smoke curling out through the gaps, I felt like a king. A dirty, salt-obsessed, deer-skin-scrubbing king who lives in a hole. But a king nonetheless. Sometimes being a clueless idiot actually works out. Let me explain. I woke up, shuffled over to my helmet pot of salt water, and nearly tripped over my own feet. Overnight, the water had separated itself into two layers, cloudy toxic sludge on the bottom, and clear, beautiful, shiny water on top. Like a lava lamp, but useful. My dumb method of boiling salt rocks 3 times and leaving it overnight had accidentally stumbled onto actual chemistry. I didn't know what I was doing, and it worked. Take that, science. Now I just needed to pour off the clean stuff, filter it, and boil it dry. Simple, right? Wrong. Because I own exactly one container, my helmet. That's it. That's the whole kitchen. It's my pot, my bowl, my berry bucket, and my water jug. I need it for everything, and there's only one of it. It's like having one fork for an entire restaurant. Pottery would solve this, but I have absolutely no idea how to make pottery. That's a problem for future Luke. Present Luke needs to eat breakfast and think. While chewing on berries and questioning my life choices, I checked on the deer hide drying on the roof. Looking decent. I pulled it down and started the tanning process. Burned some wood to ash, dug a pit, mixed the ash with water, threw the hide in, and started kneading it like bread. Very stinky, very disgusting bread that you definitely should not eat. The result won't be great leather, but it'll be my first leather, and practice makes less terrible. Then, brain flash. Actual genius moment. Possibly my first ever. Wood ash is a natural filter and cleanser, right? And I need a container that isn't my helmet. So what if I burn a bowl directly into a log? I chopped down a thick tree, made charcoal from branches, dumped the hot coals onto the trunk, and let them slowly eat a hole into the wood. Just sat there feeding it little bits of kindling for an hour while the charcoal chewed a nice pit into the log. The inside even coated itself with a layer of ash, nature's sanitizer. Behold, the world's ugliest bowl. It's a burned hole in a log. It smells like a campfire. Martha Stewart would set herself on fire rather than look at it. But it holds liquid, and right now that makes it the second most valuable thing I own after my helmet. Now the delicate operation. I had to pour only the clear salt water from the helmet into my log bowl, leaving the gross sludge behind. No funnel, no filter, no strainer. Just my hands and prayer. I held that helmet steadier than a brain surgeon, tilting it millimeter by millimeter, barely breathing, absolutely terrified of one-hand tremor ruining everything. Got it done. Poured the clean stuff into the log bowl, washed the helmet, poured it back into the helmet for boiling. Was the water still perfectly clean after all that back and forth? No. It picked up some ash and lost some volume to the wood absorbing it. Did I care? Not one bit. Even dirty salt beats no salt. I lit the fire under my helmet and started the evaporation process. Then I stared at it. For a long time. Watching water not boil is somehow even worse than watching water boil. Nothing was happening. No crystals, no salt, no nothing. My heart sank through my chest, through the dirt floor, probably all the way to the center of the earth. I needed a distraction before I lost my mind, so I built a door. A real door. Split logs into planks using my axe as a wedge, hammered it with a stick, shaved them smooth with my knife, lined them up, and nailed a diagonal plank across the back. Hung it on vine hinges. Even made it swing inward so winter snow won't block it shut. I'm thinking ahead now. Growth. Then I made furniture, because why stop when you're on a roll? Stool, easy. Chop a log section, flatten both ends, done. World's simplest chair. Very rustic. Very, I gave up on comfort. Table was trickier, it needs legs, and I'm sick of making legs for things. Then I looked at my leftover planks, looked at the wall, and had another genius moment. Who says a table needs legs? I carved a plank, drilled holes in each end, threaded vines through, and hung the whole thing from wooden pegs on the wall. A floating table. A hanging table. It's basically a shelf with ambition. Is it wobbly? Absolutely. Will my food slide off? Probably. Do I care? I do not. I stepped back and looked at my little pit house. Door. Roof. Stool. Hanging table. It's ugly as sin. Everything's crooked, and it smells like smoke and deer hide. But it looks like somewhere a person lives. A sad, weird person, but a person. I was feeling pretty good about myself when I remembered. Oh right, the salt. The salt that wasn't working. The salt I'd basically given up on. I walked back to the fire with zero expectations, fully prepared to be disappointed again. And there, at the bottom of my helmet, sitting in the last little puddle of water like tiny white miracles. Salt crystals. Salt. I screamed at the forest. It's salt. I made salt. Nobody heard me. Nobody cared. A bird flew away because I scared it. But I was standing there holding a helmet with a pinch of ugly, grayish, slightly ashy salt in the bottom, and I felt like I'd just invented electricity. For days of work. Tracking deer, licking rocks, boiling mystery water, filtering through burned logs, staring at a helmet for hours. All for maybe a teaspoon of questionable salt. Best teaspoon of my entire life. Remember those rocks I dug up from the foundation and tossed aside like garbage? Turns out, past Luke was accidentally stockpiling building materials for future Luke. Past Luke is a genius who didn't know he was a genius. I love that guy. First, a quick update on the salt situation. My homemade salt is, and I say this with love, terrible. It's gritty, bitter, and tastes like someone mixed actual salt with sand and regret. A professional chef would use it as a weapon, not a seasoning. But sprinkled on grilled fish? Suddenly that fish went from edible cardboard to edible cardboard with flavor. I was practically moaning. The bar is underground, and I am thriving. Good news kept rolling in like I'd broken some kind of cosmic luck seal. The deer hide finished soaking and went to hang dry in the shade. Roof mud dried perfectly, so I layered on thick piles of straw and pinned it down with wooden forks. Not a single strand fell through because I'd sealed every crack with mud earlier. Past Luke strikes again. I also patched up some rough spots on the house, caught another rabbit, getting pretty smooth at that whole trap thing now, and generally felt like a man who has his life mildly, slightly, barely together. But today's main event, the fireplace. See, every night I've been building a tiny fire inside the house, surrounded by a nervous little circle of rocks, praying it doesn't catch the wooden walls and turn my home into the world's saddest bonfire. A real fireplace. Fixes everything. Contained fire, heat storage in the stones so the place stays warm even after the flames die. And I stop waking up at 3 a.m. to make sure I'm not being slow roasted in my own house. Step 1. The hearth. I stacked head-sized rocks into a half circle in the southeast corner near the door, glued them together with mud, and filled the inside with fine dirt. 3 layers high, smooth flat on top. Boom! Cooking platform. I'm basically installing a kitchen. Step 2. The actual fireplace walls. This is where all those foundation rocks came in. I covered the hearth with stones, mudded them tight, then built a hollow cylinder of rocks going up the wall. 5 layers, sealed with mud on every side. Open only at the front where the fireplace mouth would be. Think of it like building a stone tube and leaving a hole for your face to watch the fire. Cozy. Step 3. The arch. This is where it got spicy. How do you build a curved opening over the fireplace mouth when you don't have any forms or molds? You cheat. I stood 3 logs upright in the opening, tall one in the middle, shorter ones on the sides, then carefully stacked stones over them in a curve, mudded everything solid, and once it dried enough to hold, pulled the logs out. The arch stood on its own like magic. I felt like a medieval architect. A dirty, sweaty, self-taught medieval architect, but still. Step 4. The chimney. Bent some flexible branches into curves inside the top of the fireplace, piled more stones and mud on top, and kept building upward while gradually narrowing the opening. Then, I climbed onto the roof, carefully, because falling off my own house would be a really embarrassing way to die, and extended the chimney up through the gap I'd left days ago. Topped it off with 2 stones and a flat slab as a rain cap. Professional. Gordon Ramsay would. Still probably yell at me, but slightly less than before. I walked back inside, stepped back, and stared at my creation. It looked like a stone beast crouching in the corner of my house. Massive, rough, powerful. I haven't even lit it yet, and I'm already in love with it. While I was on a roll, I built a bed. A real bed. Well, real is generous. It's a stone platform, 2 feet high, 2.5 feet wide, 6.5 feet long. packed with fine dirt and covered in soft, beaten, sun-dried straw. When the deer hide finishes tanning, that goes on top. No more sleeping on cold dirt like a potato that's given up on life. I finished all of this before sunset. Before sunset, I had time left over. I honestly didn't know what to do with myself. So naturally, I did something completely unnecessary. I hung the deer antlers above the door on wooden pegs. The effect was immediate and incredible. Suddenly, my sad little mud hut looked like a barbarian warlord's den. Fierce. Primal. Enter if you dare. The fact that inside it's just a wobbly hanging table, a log stool, and a straw bed is irrelevant. The vibe is immaculate. 6 days. 6 days since I decided to live in the wilderness with nothing but an axe and a bad attitude. And look at this place. Let me walk you through the tour. Exterior. Wood and mud walls, straw roof, chimney poking out the top. Faces south. One window on the left side with a cute little bamboo blind situation made of vine and sticks. Walk through the door. Antler display above, very intimidating. And to your right, the fireplace, with a small stone-ringed pit in front for burning bug-repellent grass. To the left wall, my hanging table with all my worldly possessions neatly arranged. Shield underneath, shovel in the corner. Axe, pickaxe, helmet, and a leaf full of terrible salt on the tabletop. Log stool tucked beside it. And in the back, the bed. Sword and chainmail stored between the headboard and the wall. Ready for action. Very warrior chic. Is it a mansion? No. Is it even a good house? Debatable. Is it technically still a temporary shelter until I build the real house? Yes. But it's mine, built with my own blistered hands from literally nothing. And right now, standing here looking at it in the afternoon sun, I am stupidly, irrationally proud. To celebrate, I did something I hadn't done in almost a week. I took a bath, stripped down, walked into the stream, and just existed. The water reflected my face back at me. Brown hair, blue eyes, strong jaw, a truly magnificent mess of a beard. I looked like a lumberjack who'd been raised by wolves. Very rugged. Very, don't talk to me. I live in a hole, and I'll fight you. I closed my eyes and let the cool water wash away 6 days of mud, sweat, salt grit, deer guts, wood shavings, bug bites, and general wilderness funk. For one perfect minute, everything was calm. Tomorrow? More work. Always more work. But tonight, I sleep in a house with a door, a bed, a fireplace, and antlers over the entrance. Not bad for a dead guy. Life in the wilderness was actually getting nice. 2 weeks in, and check me out. I'm making chicken soup with mushrooms and salt, eating sour fruits on the side, sleeping in a warm house with a working fireplace. I'm basically a medieval Martha Stewart, except hairier and with worse table manners. My daily routine had become wander around the forest looking for food. I'd explored 6 miles in every direction, found all kinds of edible stuff, yellow mushrooms, green fruits, more berries. Set traps for rabbits and chickens like a pro. Mined more salt from my secret Deer Lick mountain. Even the mystery predator never showed up again, so I was starting to think maybe some rats just had a really aggressive dinner party on that dead deer. But here's the thing about being smart. It ruins your happiness. Because smart Luke looked at all this food and thought, this is summer. What happens in winter? And winter Luke would be a frozen skeleton surrounded by dead plants and no food. I needed grain. Wheat, specifically. Something I could store and not starve to death in 5 months. Which meant I needed to find other humans. Also, I was starting to talk to trees, so human contact was probably overdue. I packed up for a multi-day trip. Buried my chainmail in a secret hole, because carrying 20 pounds of rusty metal over mountains is nobody's idea of fun. Loaded up my tan deer hide bag with food, strapped on my sword, hid a knife in my boot like a proper action hero, grabbed my axe, locked the front door, I have a front door now, and marched out of the mountains. For days. For days of climbing mountains, crossing rivers, hacking through branches, sleeping on dirt, and questioning every decision I've ever made. But then, standing on a hillside, looking down through the trees. A village. A tiny, sad, adorable village. 7 thatched huts huddled together like they were cold. Not even a proper village. More like a handful of houses that got lost and decided to stay together for emotional support. Maybe 20 people total. Perfect. A big town would mean soldiers, lords, questions, trouble. This little place was exactly what I needed. I stashed my axe in the bushes because showing up with an axe is universally understood as, I'm here to murder you. Straightened my clothes. Tried to look friendly and non-threatening. I failed spectacularly. The first person who saw me was a farmer working his field. He looked up, saw a tall, muscular, sword-carrying stranger with wild hair and a massive beard marching toward him, and his brain immediately screamed one word: bandit. God help us. Bandits, he shrieked, threw his hoe into the air, and bolted toward the village faster than any rabbit I've ever chased. I opened my mouth to explain, but the man was gone. Just a dust cloud where a farmer used to be. Do I really look that scary? I mean, okay, yes. Big body, messy hair, giant beard, sword on hip. I look like someone who eats people. Fair assessment. Within 30 seconds, the entire village mobilized. All 20-ish residents piled together like frightened baby birds, and somehow, out of this collection of skinny, terrified farmers, they assembled a defense force of 5 guys holding pitchforks and farming sickles. They were shaking, visibly shaking, but they stood in front of the women and children anyway. Honestly, kind of brave. Dumb, but brave. Their leader was an old man with white hair, the village elder. I could tell from 50 yards away that he was the only one who'd ever seen real combat. He was scanning me with the eyes of someone who knows what a killer looks like. And unfortunately, I look exactly like what a killer looks like. The old guy was clearly doing math in his head. Can my 5 trembling farmers with garden tools take down this absolute unit of a man? The answer was obviously no, and he knew it. Time for diplomacy. My friends, you've got it all wrong, I called out, going for my most charming, least murdery voice. I'm a traveling poet, not a bandit. I just want to trade. The old man's eyebrows shot up. Suspicious, but interested. A poet? He said, like I'd told him I was a flying horse. Yes, a poet. I just want to swap for some wheat seeds. That's all. I thought this was a perfectly reasonable request. Harmless. Friendly. Let's trade. The old man's face turned tomato red. You want our grain seeds? He exploded. And you have the nerve to say you're not a bandit. I stood there, mouth open, blinking. Okay, so apparently, in a world where everyone is one bad harvest away from death, walking up to a village of starving farmers and asking for their seed grain is basically the same as asking for their children. Seeds aren't just food, they're next year's food. They're survival. And I just casually asked for them like I was borrowing a cup of sugar. Smooth, Luke. Really smooth. The master negotiator strikes again. Okay, so the old man was furious about the seed thing, but then I pulled out my secret weapon. Salt. 5 pounds of ugly, gritty, homemade salt that a professional would probably call mineral-flavored dirt. But out here, salt is basically gold. No, salt is better than gold. These poor people had been getting their salt by boiling plant ash or trekking over the mountains to trade with merchants who ripped them off so badly it should be classified as a crime against humanity. The village chief, let's call him Grandpa, went from "die bandit" to "my dear friend" so fast I almost got whiplash. He invited me into his house, which I will describe as not significantly better than my hole in the ground. We sat down for negotiations, and Grandpa opened with 50 pounds of seed grain for my 5 pounds of salt. Now here's where I blew his mind. 20 pounds, I said. I only want 20. Grandpa froze like someone had hit the pause button on his brain. I could practically hear the Windows error sound going off inside his skull. In this world, salt to grain usually trades at 1 to 10. I just offered 1 to 4. I was basically throwing money at him. Why? Because I'm playing the long game, baby. First, I can't carry that much grain over 2 mountains anyway. Second, I know something these people don't. I have fertilizer knowledge from a civilization centuries ahead. These farmers are getting about 300 pounds of grain per acre, which is so pathetically low it makes me want to cry. They don't compost. They don't rotate crops. They don't do anything the Romans figured out, and then everyone forgot, because empires love collapsing at the worst possible time. Every acre getting 50 pounds of yield in modern terms? I can fix that. I don't need a mountain of seeds. I need good seeds and better farming. Which brings me to my shopping list. I'd also like a hoe, some needles and thread, and pottery, I said, very reasonably. Grandpa's face crumbled. We can't sell tools. A hoe is like our arm. It's like your sword. We don't have extra iron. We can't afford oxen. And we have no spare needles or pots either. Fair enough. These people are poor. Like, the old lord taxed us into dust and then died of alcohol poisoning. Poor. Couldn't even be mad about it. But then Grandpa did something unexpected. He stood up, walked to a locked chest in the corner. The fact that he has a locked chest tells you this is the good stuff. Pulled out a small bundle and handed it to me with the pride of a man presenting the crown jewels. Real wheat seeds, he said. Less than a pound, though. Wheat. Actual wheat. Not the black rye everyone else grows. The coarse, throat-scraping, mix it with sawdust and weed stuff that passes for bread around here. Real, honest wheat. Less than a pound is basically nothing in farming terms. But wheat is wheat, and I nearly hugged the old man. Grandpa looked extremely pleased with himself. In his mind, he'd just pulled off the greatest con of his career, trading worthless small amount wheat seeds and 20 pounds of cheap rye for 5 pounds of salt. He was grinning like a used car salesman who just sold a lemon for full price. Let him enjoy it. He doesn't know I have future agricultural science in my brain. That tiny bag of wheat is going to be worth more than his entire village someday. I also got some useful intel. Turns out I'm in the Burgundy region, deep in the mountains, near the border of my old home territory. This village, Ward Village, is so remote that lords basically forget it exists. Their last lord was a broke knight who spent all his tax money on booze and died in his own house. Nobody's been assigned here since. It's the forgotten armpit of the kingdom, and honestly, for someone who never wants to see a lord again, that's perfect. Then, as I was leaving, I spotted something that changed everything. Kids were playing outside with puppies. Little, floppy, stumbling around puppies, probably born just weeks ago. And one of them, a small black one, looked right at me with those big dumb puppy eyes. A dog. A hunting dog. A guard dog. A companion. A warm furry thing that would actually be happy to see me when I come home instead of just walls and silence and my own echo. I am not ashamed to say I negotiated harder for that puppy than I did for the grain. So there I was, heading back into the mountains with a huge sack of rye seed. On my back, a tiny precious pouch of weed against my chest, and a wiggly black puppy tucked under my arm, probably wondering why this giant smelly man just kidnapped it from its siblings. 4 days of mountain hiking. With a puppy. What could go wrong? Everything. Everything could go wrong. But I didn't care. I had seeds, I had salt, and I had a dog. Luke's Wilderness Resort just got its first employee. I got a dog and immediately became that person who talks to their pet like it's a human being. I'm not proud of it. It happened on day 1. Hey, little Charlie, you know what we're doing today? That's me. Talking to a puppy at dawn. Like he's going to answer with a business plan. He just wagged his tail and went, woof. And I said, exactly right, as if he'd given me profound wisdom. I have become the crazy wilderness man who talks to animals. If I start singing to birds, just put me down. Little Charlie is all black, not a single spot of other color, and honestly beautiful. He's also approximately the size of my boot and has the intelligence of a very enthusiastic potato. I love him already. 3 days back from the village trip, and things were settling in. The house was untouched except for some birds who built a nest in my roof while I was gone. Freeloaders. No rent, no lease agreement, just moved right in. Very rude. Now, I can't plant wheat until late September. It's only late July, so I've got time to kill. And by kill, I mean spend building a giant fence because there are wolves nearby, and I'd rather not become dog food. Oh yeah, about that. On the way back from the village, I found a wild boar cave and a line of wolf tracks by the river. So that dead deer from weeks ago? Definitely killed by predators. This area is totally safe. Theory? Completely, hilariously wrong. I've been living in wolf territory this entire time, sleeping in an open pit for my first week like a human lunchbox. The fact that I'm still alive is either a miracle or the wolves just haven't been hungry enough yet. So, fence. A big one. Tall stakes, sharpened on top, rammed deep into the ground, surrounding the entire homestead plus enough room for future farmland. I estimated half a month minimum. Because of course it would take that long. Nothing in wilderness life takes less than 10 times longer than you think. I started chopping trees with Charlie bouncing around my feet like a furry black pinball. He's too short to keep up with my legs, so he does this hilarious sprint waddle thing where his tiny legs move at maximum speed and he still falls behind. Between tree chopping sessions, I try to train him. Sit, Charlie. Charlie stared at me, tilted his head. Those big black eyes full of absolute nothingness. No comprehension, no recognition. Just pure, what is happening and can I eat it? Energy. I waved my arms. I pointed at the ground. I said, SIT, in every tone of voice imaginable, commanding, gentle, desperate, threatening. Charlie thought this was the best game ever and barked happily, tail going like a propeller. He was having the time of his life. I was losing my mind. Maybe I should wait until he's hungry, I muttered, accepting temporary defeat against a creature with a brain the size of a walnut. Back to fence duty. The stakes don't need to be thick, but they need to be tall. Tall enough that wolves can't jump over. I sharpened each one into a point at the top, not razor sharp, just pointy enough to make any animal think twice about climbing. It would stop wolves. It would not stop a wild boar. Those things weigh 200 to 300 pounds and charge like hairy cannonballs. If a boar decided to visit, my fence and my house would both become debris. Luckily, the boar cave is far away, and boars generally don't wake up and choose violence for no reason. Generally. By lunch, I had maybe a tenth of the materials ready. A tenth. After an entire morning. This fence is going to age me. But lunch. Oh, lunch was good. Remember how I sweet-talked the village chief into giving me a clay pot? We have no spare pottery, he said. Absolutely none, he said. Well, okay, maybe one, he said after I badgered him for 20 minutes. That pot changed my cooking game completely. Chicken stew with mushrooms and salt, cooked in actual pottery instead of a helmet. Food that actually tastes like food. Revolutionary concept. While the stew simmered, I tried training Charlie again. This time, bribery. I dangled a piece of chicken in front of his face. His eyes locked on like targeting systems. His pupils literally followed the meat around, spinning in his eye sockets like googly eyes on a cartoon character. Drool everywhere. Maximum focus. Sit. Nothing. Just frantic barking and puppy hysteria. Quiet. No barking. You want food? You listen to me. He caught my serious tone and stopped barking, but switched to this pathetic little whimper. Why are you being mean to me? I'm just a baby, whimper. Emotionally devastating. Almost broke me. Almost. I physically pushed his butt down into a sitting position. He looked at me confused. I shoved a piece of chicken in his mouth. He stood up excitedly. I stopped feeding. Pushed his butt down again. Chicken. Stood up. No chicken. But down. Chicken. Up. Nothing. Down. Chicken. Over and over. Sit. Push. Treat. Sit. Push. Treat. Again. 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 And then, like a tiny miracle, I said, sit, and he just sat. On his own. Without me touching him. He just plopped his little black butt on the ground and looked up at me like, this is what you wanted, right? Chicken, please. Good boy, Charlie. That's my dog. I gave him every last piece of chicken and rubbed his head so hard his whole body wiggled. He didn't even guard his food, just ate happily while I pet him. Good breeders back in Ward Village, apparently. At least someone taught him that much. We ate dinner together. Me with my chicken stew, him with the bones. Both of us crunching away in our little house like two bachelors who've given up on society. Beautiful. Spent the afternoon making more fence materials. Got about a fifth done by nightfall. Only 4/5 left to go. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Night came. I laid a bed of straw on the floor for Charlie because I'm a caring, thoughtful dog parent. He curled up, I climbed into bed, and we both drifted off to sleep. Peaceful. Serene. Man and his best friend, alone in the wilderness, bonded by trust, and 3 a.m. The smell hit me like a physical attack. Like something had crawled into my nostrils and died. I sat bolt upright, already knowing, already furious. Little Charlie had taken a dump. Inside the house. On the floor. Next to his nice straw bed that I made for him. He was just sitting there, wagging his tail in the darkness, completely unaware that he had committed a war crime against my nose. Are you kidding me? Who told you to poop indoors? He wagged harder. He thought I was playing the fun yelling game again. Tomorrow I am teaching you where your butt belongs, and it is not in this house. Charlie. Tail wag wag wag, man's best friend, everybody. Man's pooping on your floor, waking you up. At 3 a.m. Doesn't understand basic toilet concepts, best friend. I wouldn't trade him for anything. But seriously, the house training starts immediately. My morning started so civilized. Brushed my teeth with a salt-dipped twig like a proper gentleman of the wilderness. Ate breakfast. Made plans. Today, I announced to Charlie. We're catching chickens. Wild chickens, mountain pheasants, really, are basically the holy grail of wilderness farming. Forget the meat. I'm talking EGGS. Endless, renewable, beautiful eggs. Back in the old Baron's estate, there was literally a servant whose entire job was just collecting eggs for the Lord every day. That's how important chickens are, and I was going to catch some and start my own tiny poultry empire. The plan was simple. Wild chickens have this hilarious weakness. Cover their eyes, and they just stop. They freeze, tuck their head, fold their wings, and sit there like obedient little idiots. I'm calling it ostrich mode. I built a trap based on this principle, feeling extremely clever and professional, then hid in the bushes to wait. A seasoned hunter, patient and deadly. Charlie, meanwhile, was not being patient and deadly. He's 4 months old and has the attention span of a goldfish on caffeine. He kept nudging me with his nose. Play with me. Play with me. Play with me. I ignored him. He wandered off to entertain himself. This was a mistake. I was sitting there, perfectly still, perfectly calm, peak predator energy, when I heard it. Beezy. That sound. That specific sound. The sound that makes every living creature on Earth think, oh no, hornets. I spun around just in time to see Charlie absolutely screaming toward me, howling like his soul was being ripped out, with a cloud of angry hornets chasing him like tiny flying demons. The little maniac had found a hornet nest, and apparently poked it with his face. Come on. My brain went into emergency math mode. Can't outrun hornets. They're faster than us. Can't reach the stream. Too far. Can't fight them. Swatting at hornets just makes them angrier. They call reinforcements, and then you're fighting a bigger cloud of tiny flying demons. Charlie at least had the accidental wisdom to just run instead of fight, so only about a dozen were chasing him. Small mercy. Charlie reached me in about 3 seconds. I grabbed him, dropped to the ground, curled into a ball, shoved my head deep into the bushes, and covered my neck with my hands. Full hedgehog mode. The exact same technique as the chicken I was trying to catch, head covered, but exposed, praying for the best. The irony was not lost on me. 1 minute I'm the hunter exploiting the cover your head and freeze instinct of dumb birds. Next minute I am the dumb bird, face in the bushes, but in the air, hoping the scary flying things go away. The wilderness humbles you fast. Hornets have weird eyesight. They're better at tracking moving targets than still ones, and they rarely sting things close to the ground. So my strategy was actually solid, even if I looked absolutely ridiculous. But 2 of those little psychopaths landed on my back anyway and drove their stingers straight through my shirt. Holy mother of, imagine someone pressing a lit cigarette into your skin, then injecting hot sauce directly into the wound. That's a hornet sting. Regular bee sting? That's a gentle kiss compared to this. These things inject actual venom. My entire back was on fire. My eyes watered. My teeth nearly cracked from clenching. But I didn't move. Not 1 inch. I survived a war mace to the skull. I am not dying because of a bug. The remaining hornets circled overhead like tiny evil helicopters, waiting for me to flinch. The buzzing was right above my head, the sound of pure malice in insect form. And I was just lying there, curled around a whimpering puppy, sweating through my shirt, thinking, this is honestly the most absurd way to die. Charlie had gone quiet in my arms. Not dead. I could feel his little chest still rising and falling. But he'd been stung way more than me, and the poor guy was in rough shape. I needed to end this now. Very, very slowly, I reached for my fire striker. Every tiny movement made the hornets buzz louder, like an alarm system with wings. I scraped the striker as gently as I could, flinching every time the swarm reacted. Louder buzzing. Closer buzzing. They were zeroing in again. The hornets started descending. I struck hard. Spark. The dry branches around me caught instantly. I fed more twigs into the flame, and thick smoke billowed up like a gray wall between me and the swarm. Smoke is to hornets what garlic is to vampires. The particles clogged their compound eyes and antennae, blinding them completely. The cloud hit them like an invisible hammer, and they scattered. 1 second they were dive-bombing my position. The next they were fleeing in every direction, completely disoriented. I'd used sand to isolate the fire so it wouldn't spread, but I wasn't sticking around for a controlled burn assessment. The moment the buzzing faded, I stomped out the flames, scooped up Charlie, and sprinted home like a man who has been personally offended by nature. Score for the day: chickens caught, 0. Hornet stings received, multiple. Dog nearly killed, 1. Dignity remaining, none. Charlie lived, by the way. Tough little idiot. He's currently sleeping on his straw bed, looking like a lumpy black balloon from all the swelling. And me? I'm sitting in my house with 2 burning welts on my back and a valuable new rule: always watch the dog. Always. Tomorrow I'm trying the chicken thing again. Without the dog. Back at the house, I stripped down and rushed Charlie to the river. Time to play battlefield medic for a dog. My stings? Not too bad. The shirt blocked the worst of the venom. Pulled the stingers out, washed up, felt better in minutes. Charlie? 11 stings. 11. On a puppy the size of a loaf of bread. I touched each one, and he yelped like I was murdering him. But he was still yelping, which meant he wasn't dying. So that was the medical assessment. Still screaming? Great, you'll live. Good news, Charlie. You're too annoying to die. He whimpered at me. I whimpered back internally. Honestly, though, I wasn't mad at him. Think about it. I've been living in that forest for weeks and never spotted that nest. I'm not a careless guy. That means those hornets had an incredibly well-hidden base of operations. Charlie stumbling into it was actually a favor. Better a puppy finds it now than I step on it later while carrying an axe and a pot of boiling salt water. Silver lining, identified. Dog, forgiven. I found some purslane. It's everywhere if you know what to look for. Mashed it up in the helmet and smeared the paste on both our wounds. Does it stop swelling? A little. Does it stop pain? Absolutely not. Pain is a free bonus feature of wilderness living. No refunds. Put Charlie to bed in the house, closed the door, and immediately started planning my revenge. Because those hornets? They're done. I can't just avoid that part of the forest forever. Those little winged psychopaths have to go. Scouting mission first. I waited until dark, grabbed a torch, and crept back into the forest like the world's most overdressed ninja. Found the nest hanging under a branch, tucked between 2 forks in the tree, hidden by leaves. No wonder I never saw it. The thing was camouflaged like it was designed by military engineers. A few hornets were crawling on the surface in the dark, doing their creepy little sentry patrol. Disgusting. Noted the location. Did not touch anything. Tonight was recon only. I'm stupid, but not that stupid. Then, plot twist. On my way out, I checked my chicken traps from earlier. The ones I'd completely forgotten about during the whole being chased by a hornet army situation. 2 wild chickens. Just sitting there, caught and waiting. Like room service that arrived while I was busy being stung to near death. The universe has a weird sense of humor. Grabbed them by the wings. Took them home. Today was simultaneously the worst and best hunting day of my career. Next morning, Charlie looked like a black blowfish. Swollen everywhere, lying on the floor like a furry speed bump, barely moving. All I could do was feed him extra cooked meat and wait. He's tough. He ate a centipede off my face once. Wait, that was me. Anyway, he'll pull through. While Charlie recovered, I built a chicken coop. Priorities. These birds weren't going to house themselves. 5 yards square, fenced with sharpened stakes and mud, little door on the east side. Inside, I built a miniature shed with a straw floor and a horizontal stick suspended in the air. Chickens sleep, standing on a perch, gripping it with their feet. It's bizarre, but that's chickens for you. Their bed is a stick. Then came the fun part. Wing clipping. I grabbed the first chicken, held it firmly, and carefully trimmed the flight feathers. Not cutting the wings off, just the long feathers. Like giving a bird a really bad haircut. The chicken screamed bloody murder the entire time, kicking its feet like I was committing foul crimes. Get it? Foul crimes. I'm hilarious and alone. Tossed it into the enclosure. The chicken immediately tried to fly out. Flap, 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 going absolutely nowhere. The betrayal in its eyes was magnificent. My wings don't work anymore. Welcome to captivity, buddy. Second chicken, same treatment, same outrage. Threw it in with the first one. 1 male, 1 female, perfect. They stared at each other like 2 strangers stuck in an elevator. 0 chemistry. Complete mutual disgust. Don't worry, I told them. You'll warm up to each other. Give it time. Romance blooms in captivity. They both glared at me. Fair. Now, the hornets. I also recently dug a small root cellar in front of the house for storing food. Root cellar is generous. It's a shallow hole in the ground that uses cold dirt to keep meat fresh for a few extra days. My entire architectural portfolio is just holes. Foundation hole, storage hole, chicken coop hole. If I ever get a nickname, it'll be Luke the Hole Guy. From the cellar, I retrieved some rabbit fat I'd been saving. Scraped it carefully into the little leather pouch I'd scammed from the village chief, the one that used to hold the wheat seeds. Fat has a purpose tonight. Then I did something that probably looked completely insane to anyone watching. Nobody. Because I live alone with a swollen dog and 2 angry chickens, I covered my entire face in mud. Then my neck. Then my arms. Then my legs. Just slathered it on like the world's worst spa treatment. Mud mask, full body edition. Put my shirt back on over the mud. Then, for the first time since I buried it, I dug out the chainmail. 20 pounds of rusty metal salvation. I scrubbed it with fine sand since I have no proper oil, polishing it back to halfway decent condition. This armor has been in my family for years and saved my life multiple times on the battlefield. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be wearing it to fight insects. But here we are. I layered up like a medieval onion. Mud on skin, linen shirt over mud, chainmail over shirt, deer hide draped over chainmail. For layers of protection, I look like a walking pile of laundry that got caught in a mudslide. Absolutely ridiculous. Completely necessary. Grabbed my gear. Deer antler, fire striker, rabbit fat pouch. Checked everything twice. Tonight, at sundown, I march on the hornet nest. They stung my dog. They stung my back. They ruined my chicken hunt. Now it's personal. Operation Destroy the Hornet Empire commenced at sundown. Mission objective, total annihilation. Dress code, absolutely ridiculous. Picture me, mud-caked skin, linen shirt, 20-pound chainmail, deer hide cape, armed with fire and rabbit fat. I look like a medieval hazmat worker designed by a drunk blacksmith. If anyone had seen me marching through the forest like this, they'd have assumed I was either going to war or having a mental breakdown. Both correct. Step 1. Build the execution ground. I cleared a patch of grass using the old fire break trick. Scrape away a 2-inch border of bare dirt around the area so fire can't spread to the rest of the forest, then burn everything inside. Controlled fire. Very responsible arson. I'm basically a wilderness firefighter, except I'm the one starting the fire. The wind was blowing southwest, away from the nest. Lucky. Also meant rain was coming. Southwest wind in this region carries Atlantic weather. So the clock was ticking. I left the torch burning on the cleared ground like a little bonfire of doom, then went to face my enemy. Sneaking up on a hornet nest at night is exactly as terrifying as it sounds. Every step, stop. Listen. Check if anything is buzzing at you. Take another step. Stop. Listen. Repeat. I moved slower than a glacier with anxiety. Now, here's what I figured out about yesterday's attack. I'd been confused. If hornets mainly track movement, why did they keep circling me when I was crouched still? The answer: smell. Hornets also hunt by scent. And I, a man who owns one shirt that hasn't been washed since approximately the fall of Rome, smell like a biological weapon. The mud wasn't just armor, it was deodorant. Medieval Old Spice. Smells like dirt. For men who fight insects. Fun historical note. Nobody here has 2 shirts. Even the lords make rules about what color shirt peasants must wear, because apparently controlling our wardrobe is a productive use of noble power. But giving us a second shirt? Nah. Anyway, I got close. Real close. Close enough to see the sentries. A few hornets crawling on the outside of the nest like little security guards doing their rounds. The nest hung between 2 forked branches, low to the ground, which is why Charlie had stumbled into it. It looked like a papery gray ball of evil. I was about to charge in, rip it down, and sprint for the fire, the original plan, when I noticed something beautiful. At the bottom of the nest, facing directly toward me, was a hole. The entrance. The front door. The gate of the castle. My brain lit up brighter than my torch. What happens when you seal the gates of a castle? The army inside can't get out. They're trapped. Useless. All those hundreds of angry soldiers with poisoned swords, stuck behind a locked door while you burn their kingdom to the ground. I sprinted back, grabbed a massive wad of grass, compressed it until it was dense as a cork, and crept back to the nest. Slowly, carefully, arm extended, inching the grass plug toward the entrance hole like I was defusing a bomb. Almost there. Almost. Almost. Easy. One sentry spotted me. One little guard on the outside of the nest went, intruder, and launched straight at my face. At the same time, it vibrated some special hornet alarm frequency, because suddenly the entire nest sounded like a chainsaw starting up. OH, come on, no more stealth. I lunged forward, jammed the grass plug into the entrance hole with everything I had. One hornet that was halfway out got shoved back inside by my grass cork. Sorry, buddy. Doors are closed, stores shut, go home. The nest was now a sealed bomb of furious hornets. I could hear them inside, smashing against the walls, buzzing with the rage of 1,000 tiny suns. The sound was genuinely horrifying, like holding a vibrating basketball full of hatred. I ripped the nest off the branch and ran. 2 hornets that had been outside the nest when I sealed it chased me, stabbing furiously at my chainmail. Tink, tink, tink. Nice try, idiots. This armor stopped swords. Your little butt needles aren't doing anything. Reached the clearing, dropped the nest, piled branches around it, grabbed the torch, and set it all on fire. The crackling was immensely satisfying. Smoke poured up. The buzzing inside reached a fever pitch and then slowly began to fade. The 2 hornets that had chased me stopped attacking and flew to the fire instead, circling the burning nest, buzzing desperately. They weren't fighting me anymore. They were mourning, flying around and around their burning home, crying out in whatever language hornets cry in. I stood there, catching my breath, heart still pounding, and felt oddly philosophical. That nest was a kingdom. The queen, the workers, the larvae, they were citizens. And I just besieged their castle, sealed their gates, and burned them alive. I was the invading army, the conqueror, the villain of their tiny story. For about 3 seconds I felt genuinely sad. Then I noticed the fire wasn't hot enough. The nest was too big, and parts of it were surviving the flames. Hornets might actually escape once the fire ate through enough of the wall. Nope, not today. I untied the rabbit fat from my belt and poured it onto the nest. The fire exploded. A massive whoosh of flame engulfed everything, incinerating every last hornet instantly. The heat hit my face like opening an oven. And then, the weirdest part, the burning hornets smelled like chicken. Roasted chicken. My mortal enemies smelled delicious. The universe has a truly sick sense of humor. I stood there in my mud-and chainmail outfit, watching the last embers die, smelling phantom chicken, and thought, well, war is war. In the jungle, it's eat or be eaten, burn or be stung. And unfortunately for the hornets, they picked a fight with a guy who owns fire, rabbit fat, and zero mercy. Rest in pieces, you beautiful, terrifying, chicken-scented little monsters. Charlie's gonna be so happy tomorrow. The last fence stake went into the ground, and I sat down like a man who has earned the right to never stand again. Spoiler, I stood again. I always stand again. That's the curse of wilderness living. There's always more standing to do. 20 days since Operation Burn the Hornets. Let me catch you up on the soap opera that is my homestead. Charlie recovered. Took a while, but the little guy bounced back like the indestructible fur ball he is. He's bigger now too, which is great because it means he's slightly less likely to be killed by literally everything. The chickens? Oh, the chickens. I expected romance. I got a war zone. These 2 birds have been fighting nonstop since day 1. Screaming at each other from dawn to dusk, pecking, chasing, flapping their useless, trimmed wings at each other in fury. 1 male, 1 female, and they hate each other with a passion I didn't think poultry was capable of. So much for, they'll figure it out during mating season. Right now the only thing they want to mate with is violence. My dream of fresh eggs feels very, very far away. Then the rain came. Remember when I burned the hornets and noticed the southwest wind? Called it. Absolutely called it. Rain started that very night, and it hasn't really stopped since. It just shows up whenever it feels like it, with zero schedule, zero warning, like a relative who was in the neighborhood, and my beautiful, hand-built, pride and joy house. Leaks. Water dripping through the roof, like tiny cold fingers poking me in the face while I sleep. All that mud ceiling, all that careful straw layering, and rain just laughed and walked right through. I caught the drips in my helmet and clay pot like a sad man collecting his own tears. The house went through cycles of damp and dry so many times the wood probably has an identity crisis. But the real headache, the fence took forever, cutting wood days, building the frame days, weaving vines between the posts, almost a week. And the rain kept interrupting like a rude audience member who won't stop coughing. I get going on a good rhythm, vines threading nicely, feeling productive, and then drip, drip, drip. Back inside to stare at the wall and contemplate existence. Today I finally finished weaving the last section. Didn't even get to build the gate before. You guessed it, more rain. Of course, I stood at my window watching the drops fall, and the stress hit me like a brick. It's nearly September. September, planting season, and I haven't even started preparing the field yet. I've been so busy building fences, burning hornets, training dogs, and managing a chicken divorce that I almost forgot the entire reason I went to the village. The grain. The not starving to death this winter, grain. The moment the rain stopped, I abandoned the gate project and started clearing land. Left side of the house, nice flat area. 20 pounds of rye seed needs about 1/5 of an acre, which sounds small until you're the one pulling every weed and stone out of it by hand. 3 hours of ripping out grass and picking up rocks. My back was filing a formal complaint. My hands looked like they'd been in a fight with a cheese grater. But the ground was soft from all the rain, so at least there was that. Then the real problem, I have no plow, no hoe, no ox, no horse, no nothing. Just me and my collection of increasingly inadequate sticks. The village chief was right. A hoe is a farmer's sword. And I don't have one. I know about something called a curved plow from my, let's say, special knowledge. But a proper curved plow needs iron fittings and an animal to pull it. I have neither. So I went full caveman. I made a lay and a SI, basically a pointy digging stick with a foot peg and a flat wooden spade on a stick. You jam the pointy one into the dirt, stomp on the crossbar to push it deep, lever up the soil, then flip it with the flat one. Combined with my trusty pickaxe, it's a 3-tool system for turning earth using nothing but human stubbornness. Is it efficient? No. Is it backbreaking? Yes. Did I have a choice? Also no. I built both tools by evening and was out in the field before dawn the next day. The sky was still dark. Birds were doing their creepy pre-sunrise chanting. The forest looked like something out of a ghost story, and there I was, stomping on a stick in the dirt like humanity's earliest and most exhausted ancestor. But you know what? This dirt is mine. Every clump I turn over, every weed I pull, it's for me. No lord takes a cut. No church demands a tenth. No one tells me I have to work their land first before I'm allowed to touch mine. Back in the barony, serfs didn't really own their fields. They just rented the right to starve slightly slower. They had to plow the lord's land before their own, pay rent to use their own soil, then hand over most of what they grew. Here, I answer to nobody. This field, this house, these angry chickens, all mine. The freedom is almost dizzying. Charlie ran around the field while I worked, chasing bugs, tripping over dirt clumps, being absolutely useless and absolutely wonderful. He's my stress relief. My tiny, dumb, poop in the house stress relief. 3 full days of turning soil. 3 days of stomp, lever, flip, repeat. I turned that field over and over until it was the fluffiest, most pampered dirt in the entire kingdom of Burgundy. Dirt so soft you could sleep on it. Dirt that has been loved more than most people in this era. Day 4, September 1st. Sunset. I stood at the edge of my finished field, holding a pouch of rye seeds in one hand and a tiny precious bag of wheat seeds in the other. The sky was turning orange and pink. Charlie sat beside me, panting happily, completely unaware of the significance of this moment. This is it. Everything. The house, the fence, the salt, the chickens, the hornet war, the 4-day hike to the village, the negotiations with Grandpa, it all led here. To this patch of dirt. To these seeds. Tomorrow, I plant. And when everyone else in this kingdom gets 50 pounds of grain per acre with their garbage farming techniques, I'm going to use the agricultural knowledge rattling around in my brain to absolutely blow their minds. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, I sleep. Dawn. Door open. Grab shovel. Walk 30 yards behind the house. Stare at a pile of my own poop. This is farming, folks. The glamorous side they don't put in the brochures. That mound of human waste is my compost heap, and I've been tending it like a precious garden for weeks. Stirring it, covering it from rain, checking its moisture levels. I am a poop sommelier. Ah yes, this vintage is developing nicely. Earthy notes, hints of decomposition, excellent bacterial activity. I hate my life sometimes. Here's the science. Good fertilizer needs about 3 months to ferment properly. I've had maybe 40-something days since I arrived here. Not enough. So I've been stirring it constantly like a witch over a cauldron, trying to speed up the process through sheer determination and elbow grease. The smell is indescribable. Imagine the worst thing you've ever smelled. Now imagine stirring it with a wooden shovel at 6 a.m. That's my morning routine. But I have a bigger problem than the smell. I don't poop enough. There. I said it. The bottleneck of my entire agricultural operation is that one man cannot physically produce enough waste to fertilize a fifth of an acre. I am constrained by my own intestines. This is a sentence I never imagined thinking, yet here we are. And then there's the thief. Charlie came bounding out of the house, made a beeline straight for my precious compost pile, and tried to eat it. I smacked him away with the shovel so fast he didn't even see it coming. Get out of here. That's not food. That's fertilizer. We don't have enough as it is, and you want to recycle it through your digestive system. He looked at me like I was the unreasonable one. Dogs are disgusting. I love him. He's disgusting. To make up for my production shortfall, I supplemented with river mud, kitchen scraps, and the MVP of the medieval world, wood ash. Again, wood ash does everything. Filter water? Wood ash. Make salt? Wood ash. Fertilize soil? Wood ash. If I ever write a survival guide, it'll be one page that just says, wood ash, in giant letters. I chopped everything into tiny pieces, mixed it all together, and prayed to the composting gods that this half-baked fertilizer wouldn't destroy my crops. Will it be perfect? No. Will it be better than what literally every other farmer in the kingdom uses, which is nothing? Absolutely yes. These people get 50 pounds per acre. 50. That's embarrassing. I have knowledge in my head that's centuries ahead of this entire civilization. Even my worst effort should blow their numbers out of the water. After breakfast, and thoroughly washing my hands, I grabbed my gear and headed out for the big hunt. Target, the deer. I've been drooling over those beautiful, stupid, magnificent elk since day one. The hide I salvaged from that dead one has been incredibly useful. Now imagine what I could do with a fresh kill. Hide for leather, tendons for bowstrings, antlers for tools, bones for weapons, meat for days, blood for. Honestly, I don't know, but apparently it's good for you. A deer is basically a walking department store. Left Charlie at home. After the Hornet incident, he's permanently banned from hunting operations. He's been promoted to house security, which means he sleeps by the door and barks at wind. Now, elk are not easy prey. They're almost as tall as me, dark brown, ugly-faced, fast as lightning, and armed with antlers that could skewer me like a kebab. The herd runs a matriarchal society, one boss lady, doe leading a pack of females and juveniles, while the males lurk around the edges solo or in small groups, like awkward guys at a party who can't work up the courage to approach. I spent 3 full days digging a pit trap deep enough to hold an adult elk. 3 days of digging, from sunrise to sunset. My shovel broke, had to make a second one. 40 days into wilderness living, and I've graduated from Luke the hole guy to Luke the really deep hole guy. Very proud. But a pit trap alone is too passive. Could wait weeks for a deer to stumble in. I needed a weapon. I needed a BOW. But here's the beautiful, infuriating catch. 22 of my existence. To make a bowstring, I need deer tendon. To get deer tendon, I need to kill a deer. To kill a deer, I need a bow. To make a bow, I need deer tendon. It's a logic loop with no exit. A chicken and egg problem, except it's a deer and string problem, and both answers are, you're screwed. So, plan B. The ancient method. The method so old it makes cavemen look modern. I dressed up as a deer. I am not joking. I draped the deer hide over my body. I held the antlers above my head. I crouched in tall grass, and I started making deer noises with my mouth. DOH, that's my deer call. I practiced it. I'm actually pretty good at it, if I do say so myself. The trick is timing. It's September, which means mating season. The males are wandering around bellowing love songs at the females, trying to attract as many ladies as possible, while simultaneously wanting to fight any other male who shows up. Testosterone-fueled chaos. Nature's version of a nightclub. My strategy, pretend to be a rival male. The real males will hear my call and come charging over, ready to fight for mating rights. The females might wander over out of curiosity. Either way, something with hooves and delicious meat walks toward my trap. So there I sat, in the grass, wearing a dead deer, holding antlers over my head, making love calls. Hours passed. Afternoon became evening. My arms were dying from holding up the antlers. My throat was raw from fake moaning. I was seriously questioning every life decision that led me to this exact moment. A grown man in a deer costume, sitting in a hole-adjacent field, trying to seduce wildlife. Then, just as the sun started going down and I was about to give up and go home to eat plain fish and contemplate my failures, a deer appeared on the horizon. Showtime. The sunset was gorgeous. Red clouds stretching across the sky for miles. Very romantic. Perfect backdrop for what was about to be the most exhausting night of my entire life. He appeared like a king entering his throne room. 6 feet tall. 400 pounds. Muscles bulging under dark brown fur. Eyes burning with pure, I will yield you, energy. This wasn't just any deer. This was the deer. The alpha. The champion. The guy who had already beaten every other male in the area and claimed exclusive boyfriend rights to the entire female herd. And he was furious. Because as far as he could tell, some scrawny rival male. Me, crouching in the grass wearing a dead deer skin and waving tiny antlers, had the absolute audacity to show up on his territory and start flirting with his ladies. He looked at my antlers. He looked at his antlers. His were approximately 4 times bigger. He looked at me the way a heavyweight boxer looks at a toddler who challenged him to a fight. Not scared, just insulted. He pawed the ground, lowered his head, lined up those massive antlers like battering rams, and charged. The ground literally shook. 400 pounds of testosterone-fueled venison thundering toward me like a furry freight train. Each hoofbeat sounded like a war drum. Mud flying everywhere. The most terrifying and beautiful thing I've ever seen. Nature at full power, raw and unstoppable. 100 steps. 50. 20. I didn't move. I just watched from behind my grass cover as this magnificent, stupid, glorious animal sprinted at full speed directly into my pit trap. His front legs hit air. His brain said, wait. His body said, too late. 400 pounds of momentum meets 10 feet of empty space, and physics does the rest. The crash was thunderous. Dust exploded upward. The triumphant war cry turned into panicked screaming. The king of the forest was now the king of a hole. Thank you, God. I don't even believe in God. Didn't matter. In that moment, I believed in everything. Gravity. Holes. Dirt. The entire concept of digging. I was a religious man for approximately 3 seconds. 300 pounds of usable meat after you remove the bones and blood. 300 pounds. Combined with stored berries, that's enough to survive winter. Winter. The thing that's been haunting my nightmares since I got here. Suddenly, it looked survivable. I was laughing, punching the air, doing a little victory dance that nobody saw. Then the deer jumped out of the hole. I'm sorry, what? A 10-foot deep pit. I spent 3 days digging it. And this absolute maniac of an animal, with a broken front leg, somehow launched itself out like a 400-pound furry missile. I watched it happen and my brain refused to process it. That's like watching someone get hit by a bus and then jog away. That's like me getting hit by a warm mace and coming back to life. Oh wait, the deer saw me holding a sword, did some quick deer math. Big shiny thing plus angry biped equals danger. And bolted. On 3 legs. Are you kidding me? The chase was on. A man with a sword versus a crippled elk in a moonlit forest. The most absurd foot race in human history. Now, any sane person would say, Luke, you cannot outrun a deer. And normally, yes, correct, I am a bipedal mammal racing a quadruped. That's a losing bet. But this deer was running on 3 good legs and one that buckled with every step, making it limp gallop in the most uneven, desperate gait I've ever seen. Still faster than me, but not much faster. And here's the thing about humans that no animal understands. We don't stop. We're not fast. We're not strong. We don't have claws or fangs or wings. But we are the scariest endurance predators on the planet. Every other animal sprints, gets tired, and has to rest. Humans? Humans just keep coming. Slowly. Relentlessly. Like horror movie villains with cardio. Every time the deer pulled ahead and I lost sight of it, I dropped to the ground and found its tracks. 3 normal hoofprints and 1 weird, dragging, lopsided one. Completely unique. Impossible to confuse with anything else. Thank you, broken leg. I did regret not bringing Charlie. A hunting dog's nose would have made this 10 times easier. But Charlie is 4 months old and his primary skill is pooping indoors, so the chase went on, and on, and on. Through trees, over hills, around rocks, through mud. The deer ran. I jogged. The deer stopped to gasp. I caught up. The deer panicked and ran again. I jogged some more. An hour passed. An hour and a half. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. My sword felt like it weighed 50 pounds. Finally, in a clearing deep in the forest, the deer just collapsed. Legs gave out. Foam pouring from its mouth. Sides heaving. 400 pounds of exhausted animal lying on the ground, completely spent. It had given everything it had, and everything wasn't enough. I stumbled up to it, barely standing myself, using my sword as a walking stick, dripping sweat from every pore. You absolute lunatic, I wheezed. I dug. For 3 days. And you just jumped out. The deer said nothing, obviously, because it's a deer. I finished it quickly. One clean thrust. No point in cruelty. It had fought harder than most soldiers I'd known. Respect. Then I realized the second problem. I just killed a 400-pound animal. And now I need to get it home. By myself. In the dark. I walked back to the house, which was mercifully not too far in a straight line even though the deer had led me in circles, grabbed my axe, some vines, leftover wood planks, and built the most pathetic sled in engineering history. No wheels. No runners. Just flat boards that I could drag the deer on to reduce friction slightly. I wrestled 400 pounds of dead weight onto this contraption, which was like trying to load a couch onto a skateboard, and nearly threw my back out 17 times. Then I strapped the rope across my chest, leaned forward, and pulled. Charlie ran ahead, barking into the darkness like he was helping. He was not helping. He was providing moral support and noise pollution. I dragged that sled through the forest under the moonlight, step by agonizing step, muscles screaming, rope cutting into my shoulder, for what felt like 17 years, but was probably 2 hours. By the time I reached the house, the moon was directly overhead, and I was functioning on pure spite. I dropped the deer next to the house, walked inside, did not eat, did not wash, did not think, just fell face first onto my straw bed and ceased to exist. 3 days of digging, an afternoon of deer impersonation, a 90-minute cross-country chase, a 2-hour moonlit sled drag. For one deer. Totally worth it. I slept for approximately 11 minutes before my brain screamed, "The deer is rotting," and launched me out of bed like a medieval catapult. Every muscle in my body immediately filed a lawsuit. Arms, torn. Legs, shredded. Lower back, sent a formal resignation letter. I had pulled so many muscles I was basically just a bag of angry tendons pretending to be a person. But 400 pounds of dead elk doesn't care about your feelings. It's September, still warm enough for meat to spoil, and if I didn't butcher this thing now, my entire epic hunt would become the world's largest pile of rotten garbage. So I hobbled outside in the moonlight like a zombie with a purpose. Charlie was sleeping next to the carcass, just curled up beside it like a guard dog. "I'm protecting our food, boss." Good boy. Weird, but good. Time to butcher a deer in the dark. Something they definitely teach at fine culinary schools. I won't describe the full process because honestly some of it would make a surgeon queasy. But the highlight, I tied off both ends of the intestines with vines before cutting them loose, so nothing leaked. Clean extraction. Zero spillage. The old Luke in this body had butchered farm animals before, which meant my hands sort of knew what they were doing even when my brain was going. This is so gross. Pulled out the entire digestive system in one piece like the world's worst magic trick. And for my next act, removing a liver, save the heart and liver. Tossed some organ scraps to Charlie, who thought Christmas had come early. Buried the rest because I am not cleaning deer intestines at 3 a.m. I have limits. Few, but they exist. Then the skin. Oh, this skin. This glorious skin. The old rotted one I'd scavenged weeks ago was barely big enough for a blanket. This fresh one. This was a kingdom of leather. Enough for a proper bed cover, a deerskin coat, boots, and leftovers. I practically started designing a winter wardrobe in my head while peeling it off. Fashion Week, Wilderness Edition. Collection theme, dead things I wore. My tanning skills have actually gotten decent, plus this time I have the deer's brain, which is apparently nature's leather conditioning treatment. Don't ask me why brains tan leather. I don't make the rules. I just smear brains on animal skins, and try not to think about it too hard. Cut the meat into sections. Big leg chunks, rib slabs for stewing, everything organized. Pulled out the tendons. Finally, bowstring material. And sawed off the antlers. By the time I finished, the sun was up, and so were approximately 10 million flies who had RSVP'd to the blood party without my permission. Now the preservation marathon began. I had about 10 pounds of salt left, my surface deposits were tapped out, and the real salt mine underground would need way more manpower than just me. So I split the meat into 2 batches, salt cured for the smaller portion, smoke dried for the bulk. Both methods take days. My entire next week became: wake up, flip meat, check smoke, stir compost, weed the field, flip meat again, check smoke again, scrape deer hide, flip meat again. By mid-September, I stood outside my fence and just stared at what I'd built. Genuinely stared, because it finally looked like something. The fence stood square and solid around the whole property, sharpened stakes, tight vine weaving, a rail gate with a matched pair of massive elk antlers mounted on either side, like some barbarian coat of arms. Step through the gate. Chicken coop on the right, where my 2 feathered enemies were still waging their eternal war. On the left, a brand new open-air shed I'd built specifically for the meat. Inside it, dozens of strips of dried venison hung from vine lines, swaying gently in the breeze like the most beautiful wind chimes ever made. Forget flowers. Forget art. That is the most gorgeous sight in the world. Enough food to survive winter, just hanging there, waiting. But today was even bigger than Jerky Appreciation Day. Today I plant. I'm not exaggerating when I say I nearly cried. I have been in this wilderness for over 2 months. I have eaten fish, berries, rabbits, chicken, and deer. I have not eaten a single piece of bread. Not 1 grain of wheat has entered my body. My stomach has forgotten what carbohydrates feel like. My soul aches for bread. Warm, soft, fluffy bread. Even hard, terrible, sawdust-filled black bread. Anything. I carried my seeds to the field with the solemnity of a priest carrying sacred relics. The soil had been turned 3 times, weeded, and given a light dose of my precious compost. I separated the wheat from the rye, same family, totally different social class. Black rye is peasant food, the kind serfs mix with wood shavings just to have enough volume to feel full. White wheat makes the soft bread that nobles eat with honey while sitting on cushions and judging poor people. In this kingdom, even grains have a caste system. I don't care about grain politics. I just want to see which one grows better with real fertilizer. Seeds in the ground, gently covered, watered from the stream. Then I waited. 3 days, 5 days, and then tiny green sprouts pushing through the dark soil like miniature flags of victory. I've never been so excited about grass in my life. More compost, carefully measured. Not too much. Over-fertilizing kills crops, just as dead as under-fertilizing. Balance. Patience. Then I realized I'd made a catastrophic mistake. The field was outside the fence. I had built an entire fortress to protect myself from animals, and then planted my food supply in the open wilderness where every rabbit, chicken, and deer in the county could wander up and eat it like a free buffet. I am a genius of self-sabotage, a prodigy of poor planning. I should teach a class called How to Do Everything Right and then ruin it at the last step. Panic stations. Emergency fence building. Another 2 weeks of chopping, sharpening, digging, weaving. During the day, Charlie and I patrolled like border guards, scaring off any animal that looked at my seedlings funny. At night, I mounted the deer's skull and antlers on stakes around the perimeter, bleached bone and empty eye sockets glaring into the darkness. Don't even think about it, very metal. Very effective. Birds were the worst. They don't care about skulls. They don't care about anything. They just land and start pecking. I caught and killed a few to make an example, then built a scarecrow. Stuffed it with straw, dressed it in. Well, I don't have spare clothes, so it's basically a stick figure wearing grass. Not intimidating, but it works. The birds think it's a person. The birds are dumb. Finally, the field was secured. Fenced, guarded, scarecrowed, skull decorated, and growing beautifully. Farming isn't easy. It's never been easy. But every morning I walk out and see those green rows getting taller, and I think, that's bread. That's winter. That's survival. And it's all mine. Farming season was basically my full-time job, my overtime job, and my weekend job combined. Every day, wake up, go to field, pull weeds, water crops, check compost, flip drying meat, go back to field, repeat until I forgot what free time felt like. I didn't even build the fence gate I'd been promising myself for weeks. The gate can wait. The wheat cannot. But on one of my rare days off, and by day off, I mean slightly less backbreaking labor, I wandered east and discovered something that made me actually gasp out loud. Apple trees. A whole grove of them. In October. Peak apple season. Fat, red, gorgeous apples hanging from the branches like nature's Christmas ornaments. I stood there staring at them the way a normal person stares at a pile of gold. Then I ate 3 on the spot, juice running down my beard, making noises that would be inappropriate in polite company. Went home, wove a basket out of vines, came back, and filled it until it was overflowing. Apples, baby, apples. With the crops stabilized and my food situation looking genuinely hopeful for the first time ever, my brain finally had room for the project I'd been dreaming about since the deer hunt. The bow. Remember the catch, 22? Need bowstring to make bow. Need deer tendon for bowstring. Need bow to kill deer? Well, I have the tendon now, ripped straight from my 400-pound nemesis. Time to close the loop. Step 1, bow body. Needs to be flexible but strong. Snap under pressure, and you've just wasted weeks of work and possibly blinded yourself. I chopped down an oak, split out a 3-foot strip of heartwood, and started shaping it with my knife. Then I needed to smooth it. With what? I don't have sandpaper. I don't have a file. I don't have anything designed for smoothing. I have rocks. So I sat there for 4 days rubbing a stick with a rock. For days. Of rubbing. A stick. With a rock. If someone had painted a portrait of me during this process, it would be titled, Man Losing His Mind Very Slowly. Once the blank was smooth, I carved out the shape. Grip in the middle, arms tapering to the tips. A real bowyer makes these parts separately and assembles them. I made the whole thing from one piece because I'm not a real bowyer. I'm a desperate man with a knife. Then came the worst part, training the bow. You have to slowly, carefully bend and twist the wood over and over to make it flexible. Too much force and snap. 4 days of rock rubbing for nothing. Too little and you accomplish nothing. It's like arm wrestling a baby. You need to use effort while also being incredibly gentle, and the mental strain of holding back while pushing forward made me sweatier than actual labor. Every time I thought it looked perfect, I'd close one eye and sight down the length and find it was still crooked, still uneven, still slightly wrong. No proper tools, no experience, just me eyeballing it and going, that looks. Almost. No, still garbage. Mid-October before I was finally satisfied. 6 weeks for one bow. 6 weeks. Stringing it was almost anticlimactic. Took the dried deer tendons, split them into thin fibers, twisted them into a cord, tied it to both tips. Drew it back experimentally. It flexed. It held. It didn't snap. The bowstring hummed when I released it. A beautiful little twang that echoed through the cabin. I may have gotten a little emotional. Just a little. Manly emotions. Arrows next. No iron for proper arrowheads, so I ground deer bone into points. Bone arrowheads. Very prehistoric, very hipster. The shafts were a nightmare. First batch? Snapped the instant I drew the bow. Just, crack, sad little splinters everywhere. Made more. Dried them properly this time. Straightened each one individually. By the end of October, I had 12 functional arrows and approximately 0 patients remaining. Test day. Found a rabbit. Knocked an arrow. Drew the bow. Steadied my breath. Aimed. Release. Dot missed. By a lot. Shot again. Missed. Again. Missed. And again. And again. 12 arrows, 0 hits. The rabbit was probably laughing. The trees were definitely laughing. But, and this is the important part, the bow worked. The arrows flew. They just flew to the wrong places. That's a me problem, not an equipment problem. And me problems get fixed with practice. Give me a month of shooting, and these rabbits are toast. I hung the bow on my cabin wall next to my sword and shield. 12 arrows bundled in vine, hanging beside them. I stepped back and looked at my arsenal. Crossguard sword, round shield, hunting bow, bone-tipped arrows. I look like a proper warrior. A badly equipped, self-taught, wilderness warrior, but a warrior nonetheless. Something deep in my chest stirred. That old instinct, the one that loves weapons and readiness and the feeling of, try me. Then Charlie shoved his big dumb head against my leg. 3 months old, and he's tall now. Not a puppy anymore. A proper young dog, gangly and energetic and constantly doing stupid things that make me want to both hug him and strangle him. 3 more months, and he'll be a real hunting partner. Can't wait. Speaking of partners, the chickens finally stopped fighting and started dating. 3 months of screaming, pecking, chasing, and mutual hatred, and then one day they just figured it out. And now they're producing eggs. Eggs. I boiled one in my clay pot and made egg soup, and it tasted like civilization. Like being a person again. Like all those mornings in the old village when breakfast was simple and warm and you didn't have to kill it first. Life was actually getting good. More food than ever. A bow for hunting. Crops growing. Eggs for breakfast. A dog that only poops indoors occasionally. A leather working operation. Apples for snacking. I was starting to feel less like a desperate survivor and more like a man building something real. That night, I crawled into bed feeling genuinely content. Warm cabin, crackling fireplace, Charlie curled up by the door. I drifted off and dreamed about feasts, tables overflowing with roasted meats and fresh bread and things I hadn't tasted in months. It was glorious. I was smiling in my sleep. Then the chickens started screaming. Then Charlie, sweet, goofy, tail-wagging Charlie, stood up, faced the door, and made a sound I'd never heard from him before. Not barking, not whimpering. A deep, guttural, teeth-bared growl. The kind of sound that comes from somewhere ancient and primal. The fur on his back, standing straight up. And then, from outside, cutting through the darkness like a blade made of ice. AWO. I was sitting upright before my brain even processed it. Every hair on my body vertical. Heart hammering. Eyes wide. I know that sound. Every human who has ever lived in the wild knows that sound. It's the sound that made our ancestors build fires and walls and stay awake through the night. Wolves. The wolves are here. Wolves. Of course it's wolves. Because why would the universe let me have one nice evening? I was out of bed before my eyes were fully open. Sword in one hand, shield in the other, heart doing a drum solo against my ribs. Charlie was losing his mind at the door, every hair on his body standing straight up, growling like a dog 3 times his size. The chickens were screaming in their coop. The whole homestead had gone from peaceful sleep to absolute chaos in about 4 seconds. I cracked the door open and peeked out. Green eyes. Pairs of them. Floating in the darkness at the tree line like evil little lanterns. Not one pair. Not 2. Lots. A whole constellation of murder staring back at me. The howling wasn't random. They were calling each other. Assembling the squad. Getting the whole gang together for a group dinner. And guess who's on the menu? Me. And my dear jerky. And my chickens. Everything I've spent months building. Just buffet items. Here's the thing about wolves. 1 or 2. Manageable. I've been in actual human battles. I can handle a couple of angry dogs. But a pack? A wolf pack is a military unit. They have strategy, coordination, roles, ranks. They're basically furry special forces with teeth. And then I saw it. The fence gap. The gate I never built. The gate I kept saying, I'll do it tomorrow, for weeks. That wide open hole in my defenses, staring at me like my own stupidity given physical form. Every procrastinator's nightmare, except mine has wolves pouring through it. But that gap was also my advantage. For walls of sharpened stakes on every other side meant they could only come at me from one direction. Hold the gate. Hold everything. I shoved Charlie back inside. Stay. For once in your life, stay. Put on my chainmail and walked into the yard alone. The wolves were waiting. Smart. They were letting the darkness deepen, waiting for the last sliver of moon to disappear behind the clouds. Fighting in total darkness. Their specialty, not mine. Then the clouds swallowed the moon, and they attacked. 2 came first. Scouts. The expendable ones. Every wolf pack has low-ranking members they send in to test how dangerous the prey is. 1 from the left, 1 from the right, creeping forward with their teeth out, trying to intimidate me. 10 steps away. They crouched to spring. I slammed my sword against my shield. Bang. The one on the right flinched. Just a half-second hesitation, but enough. The one on the left didn't stop. It launched straight at my leg, jaws wide open, fully committed to taking a bite out of my thigh. I pivoted, swung the shield downward like a hammer, and cracked it across the wolf's skull. The impact vibrated up my arm. The wolf crumpled, rolling away yelping, seeing stars. Get wrecked, puppy. The right wolf recovered and leaped for my head. I ducked, felt the wind and the stench of its breath pass over me. And as it sailed past, I whipped the sword around and caught its back leg. The blade bit deep. Blood sprayed. The wolf hit the ground howling, then limped away trailing red. 2 down, 0 kills, but 2 very discouraged wolves who were currently regretting their career choices. I expected the pack to back off. Predators usually do when the prey fights back hard. That's basic nature stuff. Oh, this one bites. Let's find something easier. These wolves did not back off. Instead, the entire pack stepped out of the shadows. All of them. 12, maybe 15 pairs of green eyes forming a semicircle around me. Big ones. Not the scrawny scouts. These were the veterans. The Alpha's inner circle. And they were using the most infuriating strategy imaginable. They didn't charge. They just harassed me. One would dart in, snap at me, then retreat the moment I swung. Another would probe from the side. Then another. They took turns, keeping me spinning, keeping me swinging at air, wearing me down one fake out at a time. It was brilliant. It was maddening. It was exactly what a smart general would do against a stronger but outnumbered opponent. Don't fight him, just tire him out. My plan was simple. Kill 2 or 3 and the pack breaks. But I couldn't kill any because they never committed. Every attack was a feint. Every charge ended in a retreat. They were playing with me like a cat with a mouse, except I'm the mouse and the cats are a coordinated military operation. Sweat soaked through my shirt, through my chainmail. My arms were getting heavy. The sword felt like it weighed 100 pounds. And the wolves knew it. Every time I slowed down for a breath, they pressed closer. Every time I rallied, they melted back. Why weren't they leaving? That's what confused me. I was clearly too dangerous for easy prey. Any rational predator would cut losses and go hunt rabbits. Unless, then the Alpha walked out. Bigger than the others by a lot. Mixed color fur, scarred muzzle, eyes that radiated pure, I am in charge and you are food. He stared at me with this expression that I swear, looked like amusement. Like he was enjoying this. Like this was entertainment for him. He charged. And this time, 5 or 6 wolves came with him, from every angle at once. The real attack. The final push. I raised my shield. Gripped my sword. Locked eyes with the Alpha. You want it? Come get it. Every fiber of my being focused on that big wolf in the center. Kill the leader, the pack crumbles. That's how it works. That's how armies work. That's how wait. Charlie was barking. Not just barking, screaming. Frantic, desperate, hysterical barking. Aimed not at the door, but at something behind me. Inside the compound. Something that had been there before the attack even started. My blood turned to ice. I spun around. A massive wolf, the biggest yet, had been hiding inside my fence the entire time. Crouched behind the chicken coop. Waiting in the shadows while its pack distracted me at the gate. While I was busy playing hero at the entrance, this thing had been sitting 10 feet behind me like a patient assassin. And now it launched off the ground and landed directly on top of me. The Alpha wasn't leading the charge. The Alpha was the distraction. These wolves aren't animals. They're tacticians. They sent scouts to test me, harassers to tire me, a fake leader charge to hold my attention, and a hidden flanker to hit me from behind. I've been outplayed. By dogs. The wolf landed on my head. Let me say that again for the people in the back. A wolf jumped on my head from inside my own fence. While I was busy being a hero at the front gate like an idiot. Its jaws clamped down and I felt teeth scrape across my, thank God, iron helmet. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Wolf fangs on metal going screch. 20 pounds of rusty chainmail and a dented helmet just saved my life for the 100th time. Best family heirloom ever. Sorry grandma's quilt, the armor wins. Drool. Warm, thick, disgusting wolf drool dripping down my face like the world's worst facial treatment. I could smell its breath. It smelled like death had eaten garbage and then thrown up. Something snapped inside me. Not fear. Not panic. Rage. Pure, red hot. I built this place with my bare hands, and you are not taking it, rage. I dropped my shield, grabbed this wolf by its tail, and screamed, get off me, and ripped it off my head like pulling a hat off in a windstorm. The tail connects to the spine. Yanking it is apparently agonizing, because the wolf went stiff, legs twitching, howling in agony. I stomped on its neck. Crack. Done. Wolf number 1. But while I was playing rodeo with the spy wolf, the Alpha had charged in with the whole pack. 4 wolves hit me simultaneously. Legs, waist, chest. Two bit into my chainmail and got nothing but sore teeth. Idiots. But one clever, horrible, lucky wolf, found my left leg below the armor. Its teeth went through my pants and into my flesh like hot nails. I felt every single fang individually. The pain was so sharp my vision went white for a second. I didn't scream. I stabbed, pulled my hidden knife, and drove it straight into the wolf's eye. Through the eye, into the brain. The wolf let go, shrieked like something from a nightmare, and rolled away dying. Wolf number 2. Meanwhile, my right hand found my sword still buried in wolf number 3, the one I'd pinned to the ground moments earlier when it lunged at my other leg. Skewered it straight through. 3 wolves dead in about 10 seconds. The math finally clicked for the pack. 3 dead. Their ambush failed. Their hidden assassin was next stomped. Their spy infiltration strategy, which, I have to admit, was brilliant, got them nothing but casualties. The remaining wolves started backing away. Not running. Wolves are too proud to run. Just retreating with dignity. The low-ranking ones broke first, scattering into the trees. Then the veterans. Finally, the alpha himself looked at me one last time with an expression I can only describe as, "Okay, you win this round," and disappeared into the darkness. I stood there, bleeding from my leg, covered in wolf spit, surrounded by dead wolves, holding a bloody knife in one hand and a bloody sword in the other, breathing like a broken bellows. The moon came back out from behind the clouds, because of course it did, dramatic lighting after the fight. Thanks, universe, very helpful. Then I looked at my leg. Bad. Really bad. A ring of puncture wounds around my calf. Each one oozing blood, the flesh torn and ragged. If the wolf had held on one more second, it would have ripped the muscle clean off. The real danger wasn't the wound itself. It was infection. In this era, infection kills more people than swords, arrows, and wolves combined. The doctors here are literally barbers who think bleeding you more is the cure, and if you die, it's because you didn't pray hard enough. Incredible healthcare system. 5 stars. I limped to the river with Charlie, who'd been going absolutely insane behind the locked door this whole time. He tried to lick my wound. Sweet thought. Horrible idea. Dog saliva plus open wolf bite equals death speedrun. I pushed him away, squeezed the blood out, washed it with salt water. The burning was so intense I nearly bit through my own lip. Then crushed dandelions with wood ash, the only antiseptic I have, and packed it into the wounds. If this doesn't work, I'm dead. Simple as that. Limped back home. The chickens were huddled together in their coop, pressed against each other like 2 people on a sinking ship who've suddenly forgotten they hate each other. 3 months of fighting, and now they cuddle. Apparently shared wolf trauma is the ultimate relationship counselor. Charlie was growling at the dead wolves. Big tough guy now, huh? Where was this energy when you were behind the door? I dragged the 3 wolf corpses 200 yards from the house, sharpened 3 tall stakes, and impaled them. Heads up, jaws open, eyes staring. Medieval scarecrows from hell. This is what happens when you mess with my homestead. Come look. Bring friends. Then I went inside and passed out. 5 days of waiting. 5 days of checking my leg every hour, pressing around the wounds, sniffing for rot, praying to gods I don't believe in. Each morning I woke up thinking, is today the day the fever starts? No fever. No infection. The dandelions worked. Or I got lucky. Or both. I don't care. I'm alive. I finally built the stupid fence gate. The gate that would have prevented this entire disaster. The gate I procrastinated on for weeks because, I'll do it tomorrow. I hammered every stake into that gate with the fury of a man who almost died because of his own laziness. Then I sat down and had a long, hard conversation with myself. A post-battle debriefing. General Luke reviewing his own failures. Mistake 1. The gate. Obviously, if I'd finished the fence, I could have sat inside my fortress and picked them off one at a time through the gaps. Instead, I fought in the open like a gladiator with no audience. Mistake 2. The spy wolf. A wolf snuck into my compound before the attack and just hid, silently, eyes closed, not breathing hard. A wolf played possum inside my own yard, and I didn't notice. Charlie noticed. The chickens noticed. Everyone noticed except the supposedly smart human with combat experience. The chickens are smarter than me. I need to sit with that. Mistake 3. I can't shoot a bow. If I could actually hit something with my arrows, I could have ended this in 30 seconds. 3 dead wolves from range, and the pack would have fled before reaching the fence. But no, I spent 6 weeks building a bow, and I still can't hit a stationary rabbit at 20 paces. Practice. Every single day. No excuses. And mistake 4. The big one. I'm alone. One man can't do everything. Can't farm, can't build, can't hunt, can't guard, can't sleep with both eyes closed. If I'd had even one other person here tonight, everything changes. One person watches the back while I hold the front. One person stays awake while I sleep. One person notices the spy wolf I missed. Humans are pack animals too. That's the whole point. I need help. I need a partner. Someone who can swing an axe and hold a spear and watch my back at 3 a.m. when wolves decide to ruin my life. Not a crowd. Crowds bring politics and drama and people who steal your stuff. Just one person. One reliable, strong, hardworking person. Not a woman. I need a laborer and a fighter, not a relationship. One man. I stroked my beard and stared at the fire and thought the thought that would have horrified my modern sensibilities but makes perfect sense in this horrible medieval hellscape. Maybe. I should go buy a slave. Welcome to the Dark Ages, ladies and gentlemen, where the best solution to your loneliness problem is shopping for a human being at the local market. I hate it here, but I hate being dead more. The wheat and rye are growing beautifully. My compost worked. My farming knowledge works. I am a genius of agriculture surrounded by people who think spreading nothing on dirt and praying counts as farming. Next spring is going to be incredible, but I wasn't thinking about wheat. I was thinking about shopping. For a human being. Which is a sentence that feels terrible to write, but this is medieval France and morality is complicated. Let me break down the economics of buying a person in this nightmare era. One adult male slave costs about 500 pfennigs. A regular worker earns maybe 2 pfennigs a day. So a slave costs roughly 8 months of wages. And the currency system? Absolute madness. 1 pound equals 20 sous, 1 sou equals 12 pfennigs. Not base 10. Not base anything logical. Just medieval math designed to give accountants brain damage. But here's my advantage. I don't need coins. I have pelts. 3 wolf skins from my midnight battle, a bunch of rabbit furs I've been tanning, and the knowledge that fur is insanely valuable right now. Some law called the Forest Law basically made hunting illegal for common people, which means leather and fur became luxury goods. A regular carpenter would have to work an entire month without eating to afford a rabbit fur-trimmed coat. I've got a whole backpack full of furs. I'm basically carrying a briefcase of cash, except it's furry and smells like smoke. Also built an irrigation ditch to the stream for my crops. Took almost no time because the stream is close. Finally, something that was easy. I should write that down because it'll never happen again. Mid-November. Time to move. I stocked the chicken coop with extra food and water, said goodbye to my beautiful fenced compound, complete with wolf corpses on stakes, which I'm pretty sure has permanently scared away everything within a mile. Locked the gate and headed out with Charlie. 3 days to Ward Village this time. Getting faster at mountain crossing. Practice makes less terrible. Walked down the hill, and there was Grandpa the village chief, loading up a donkey cart with his young guys. They couldn't afford horses or oxen, but they had a donkey, because donkeys eat anything and cost nothing. My kind of animal. Hey chief, where you headed? Oh, it's you, the poet. We're going to Cooper Castle to trade. Wait, is that the same black puppy? He stared at Charlie like he'd seen a ghost. And honestly, fair reaction. Charlie left this village as a tiny floppy thing you could hold in one hand. He came back looking like a small horse. While every other dog in the village was skinny and bony, Charlie was built. Thick, muscular, glossy coat, clearly the best-fed canine in the entire kingdom. He looked like a rich kid visiting a poor neighborhood. The other dogs were intimidated. Charlie was oblivious, immediately running over to play with them like, "Hey guys, remember me? I eat meat every day now." Grandpa also noticed that I'd gotten bigger, more muscular, better fed. He gave me this look that was half suspicious. Half. "What are you eating out there in those mountains?" "So, friend. What brings you back?" he asked, eyes twinkling with that. Maybe I can rip him off again, energy. "Actually, I'd love to tag along to Cooper Castle. I'll pay for the ride." His face lit up, then dimmed when I didn't mention salt. But a free bodyguard with a sword was apparently acceptable too, because he looked at my weapons and nodded. Smart man. Bringing armed company on the road is always wise. Then he dropped some very interesting news. "Be careful though. The Baron just went east on campaign with the Duke. Something about the Count of Burgundy not recognizing the Duke's authority. There might be war prisoners being sold as slaves at the castle. Watch your belongings around them, slaves. At the castle. Already there. I had been planning to trek to some distant city to find a slave market. But there's one 5 miles away, with fresh prisoners of war. The universe just handed me exactly what I needed on a silver platter. Or a donkey cart, technically. 3 hours of bumpy, terrible road through falling autumn leaves. Charlie trotted alongside the cart. The village boys stared at my sword nervously, and I tried not to look too excited about the prospect of buying a human. Normal Tuesday in medieval France. Cooper Castle appeared on the horizon. A stone-and-earth fortress, 30 feet high, sitting on flat plains. We'd left the mountains behind. This was open country. The castle wasn't grand, just functional. Baron-level fortification. Practical. Ugly. The real action was around the castle. Clusters of thatched roof hovels spread out from the base, dark and cramped, plus a few nicer buildings. Blacksmith, tailor, that kind of thing. The medieval equivalent of a strip mall. Grandpa took me to his usual tavern, which doubled as an inn, because everything in the Middle Ages multitasks, and I paid for a night. Then I excused myself to go sell my furs. That's when the tavern owner stopped me. Hey, friend. Wait, narrow-faced guy? Shifty eyes. The kind of man whose eyeballs are constantly doing math. That's leather in your pack, isn't it? Don't look at me like that. I have sharp eyes. And let me tell you, if you walk into a leather shop with that much fur at once, you'll get a terrible price. Supply and demand, friend. He was right. I knew he was right. Dump everything at one shop and they'll lowball me because they know I'm desperate to sell. Classic. I can introduce you to some people, he continued, eyes gleaming. Soldiers who just came back from the campaign. They've got war loot, they've got coins, and they love fur. Interested? A tavern owner offering to connect me with wealthy buyers instead of letting me get ripped off at a shop. Either this guy is genuinely helpful, or he's angling for a cut, or he's setting me up to get robbed. Probably option 2. Maybe option 3. Definitely not option 1. But I've got a sword, a shield, a mean right hook, and I recently killed 3 wolves with my bare hands and a kitchen knife. I think I can handle some drunk soldiers. Lead the way, I said. Shopping spree at the medieval war surplus store. Let's see what Cooper Castle has to offer. Cooper Castle was exactly as depressing as I expected. The Baron's fortress sat on a flat plain like a gray stone fist, surrounded by the usual collection of sad little huts where the peasants lived. Dark, cramped, smelly. The medieval dream, everybody. But I wasn't here for sightseeing. I was here for shopping. And by shopping, I mean the morally questionable kind where the product is a person. I'm not proud, but I'm also not dead, and I'd like to keep it that way. First things first, sell the furs, get coins, buy a human being. Simple 3-step plan. What could go wrong? The tavern owner, Shifty Eyes McGee, stopped me on my way out and offered to introduce me to a buyer instead of letting me get ripped off at the leather shop. His fee? 1 rabbit skin. Cheap for a middleman. Either he was genuinely helpful or setting me up. But the village chief vouched for him, and I had a sword, so sure. Let's go meet your friend. On the way, I spotted 2 things that made my heart race, a mill and a blacksmith. A mill means I can eventually grind wheat into flour. A blacksmith means iron tools, real shovels, real hoes, real axes that aren't just slightly sharper sticks. Every time I've struggled these past months, the answer was always, this would be easy if I had iron tools. Iron is the dream. Iron is the future. But first, wolf skins. Shifty Eyes led me to the house of a man called Deaf John. He banged on the door like he was trying to demolish it. And when Deaf John finally opened up, a wall of stench hit me so hard I nearly passed out. Inside, I could see why. He kept his livestock in the house. One half was his bed, the other half was his barnyard. He literally sleeps next to animal poop every night. And people think my living situation is rough. I live in a pit in the forest, and my house smells like roses compared to this. Deaf John had a face like a squashed potato, upturned nose, greasy hair, ugly as sin. And he was loud. Not rude loud, literally can't hear himself loud, because his eardrums got wrecked in battle. Every sentence felt like being yelled at through a megaphone. I laid out my 3 wolf pelts. His eyes went wide. The man practically started drooling. He tried to play it cool. Only 3. The Lord's man might not be satisfied. but I could see his fingers twitching to grab them. Here's what Shifty Eyes told me later about the scheme. Deaf John wanted to bribe a lord's attendant with fancy furs to get appointed as the new mill operator. The previous mill guy made a fortune skimming off the top, until the Baron noticed and butchered him like a pig. So the mill job is actually a trap. The Baron lets someone get rich and greedy, then takes everything. And Deaf John was too dumb to see the pattern. Shifty Eyes thought this was hilarious. I thought it was terrifying. Medieval politics, where upward mobility is just a faster route to getting murdered. How much? John bellowed. 60 pfennigs each, I shouted back. What? Speak up. The war broke my ears. 60 pfennigs. Or 150 for all three. That's actually a decent deal. Wolf fur is premium stuff. Soft, warm, rare. I was practically giving them away. John nodded, satisfied, and turned to yell into his house. Ryan, you worthless wretch. Get out here and take these furs. And bring my money. If I find out you stole a single coin, I'll skin you alive. Out shuffled a boy. Maybe 15, 16 years old. Golden curly hair. Pale blue eyes. Thin as a rail, clearly underfed, but with a frame that suggested he'd be solidly built if anyone ever actually gave him food. He moved quickly, kept his head down, carried the money jar without spilling. Well-mannered. Too well-mannered for a peasant's kid. Shifty Eyes leaned over and filled me in quietly. Ryan was a slave, war prisoner. Most of the slaves from the campaign had already been sold to the stone quarries by the Baron, but John got to keep this one thanks to his buddy in the Lord's entourage. John had tried to force himself on the boy. Ryan bit his ear nearly clean off. John beat him half to death for it, but never tried again. Now he just beat him regularly for regular reasons instead. This was a lot of information delivered very casually by a man who clearly found it all mildly amusing. Medieval morality, everyone. Truly inspirational. But my brain had locked onto something completely different. The other slaves were gone. Already sold. Shipped to quarries. I was too late. My whole plan, walk in, buy a slave, walk out, just evaporated. The market was empty. I'd have to travel even further, to a bigger town, carrying a huge bag of coins through bandit-infested countryside. Terrible plan. The kind of plan that ends with me face down in a ditch minus my money and plus several stab wounds. I was spiraling into frustration when I looked at Ryan again. Really looked. Good bone structure under the malnutrition. Quiet but alert. Polite without being broken. A kid who'd been beaten repeatedly, but still bit someone's ear off when pushed too far. There was steel in there. And most importantly, where are you from? I asked him. He looked surprised that anyone was talking to him like a person. Province, sir. How'd you end up here? My family died. I fled the famine. Got conscripted in the county of Burgundy. Then captured by Master John. A small bow. Respectful, but not groveling. This kid was not a serf's son. Too articulate. Too composed. What did your father do? He was a carpenter, sir. A carpenter. Hey, carpenter. A carpenter's son. A boy raised around woodworking. Someone who knows how to handle tools, measure things, build things. Sitting right here, being wasted as Deaf John's punching bag, when he could be helping me construct an actual civilization in the mountains. My brain shifted gears so fast it nearly gave me whiplash. I turned to John and cranked up the volume. John, 100 pfennigs for all 3 wolf skins. But I want the boy too, 100 instead of 150. A 50 pfennig discount in exchange for a worthless slave he clearly hated. From his perspective, he'd be getting rid of a mouth to feed and getting premium wolf fur and still walking away with a fat stack of coins. The look on his face told me the math was already working in my favor. A carpenter's son, in MY Wilderness, with MY tools, building MY future. Sometimes the universe takes away your plan and gives you something better. Buying a human being is exactly as awkward as it sounds. 0 out of 10 experience, would not recommend. But here we are in medieval France where this is just called Tuesday shopping. Deaf John, of course, tried to squeeze me dry. 100 pfennigs and all the rabbit furs, he screamed, because everything Deaf John says is screaming. We haggled back and forth, him yelling prices at me yelling back, the entire neighborhood getting a front row seat to the world's loudest negotiation. In the end, I gave him every piece of leather I had except the deer skin, plus got 100 pfennigs back. Not the deal I wanted, but I walked away with the boy, so fine. Whatever. Deaf John can choke on his wolf furs for all I care. Ryan, that's the kid, followed me out looking like a puppy that's been kicked so many times it doesn't know what a gentle hand feels like. Golden curls, blue eyes, skinny as a fence post, clothes so torn they barely qualified as fabric. He had no idea why I'd bought him. For all he knew, I was going to turn him into a soldier or something worse. Then I walked into the blacksmith shop and his confusion went through the roof. Because I went absolutely feral in there. 75 pfennigs, nearly everything I had, gone. In one glorious, magnificent spending spree. A real iron hoe, a saw, an iron shovel, a sickle, and then the woodworking tools, a plane, chisels, a small hammer. Real tools, metal tools, tools that aren't just sticks I shaped with other sticks. Do you understand what this means? Months of carving everything from wood with a knife and a prayer. Months of breaking wooden shovels. Months of, if only I had a real hoe. And now I'm standing in a blacksmith shop holding an actual iron shovel, and I might actually be trembling with joy. I dumped the entire haul into Ryan's arms. Carry these. Welcome to employment, kid. Your signing bonus is back pain. Then I had to talk. Here are the rules, talk. I looked down at him. I'm considerably bigger than a malnourished 15-year-old, and laid it out straight. I'm not John. I won't beat you for fun. I'll feed you well if you work well. But, and this is the important part, you will be loyal. I'm great to my people. Generous, even. But you have to be my people first. And if you betray me or try anything stupid, I won't beat you. I'll just kill you. Clear? His eyes went wide. Then he nodded, very quickly. Understood, master. He could tell I wasn't bluffing. Good instincts. Also, don't call me master. Pick something else. He thought for a second. My lord. Lord. I chewed on that. I live in a dirt hole in the mountains. I own one shirt, a dented helmet, and 2 angry chickens. Lord is generous, but it sounds better than master, which makes my skin crawl. Fine. Lord it is. Then I tossed him the remaining piece of deer leather. His hands literally shook catching it. The kid was wearing rags. Not old clothes. Rags. I can see most of your body through the holes. Rags. November was coming. Winter after that. Without something warm, he'd freeze to death, and I didn't just spend a fortune buying a corpse in progress. The way he looked at that piece of leather, like I'd handed him gold. In this world, a lot of slave owners genuinely don't care if their property dies. A dead slave is just a cost of doing business. The fact that I gave him something to wear registered as an act of extraordinary kindness, which tells you everything about how low the bar is in this era. Spent my last 25 pfennigs on pottery, bowls, and odds and ends. Then grabbed Charlie from the tavern. He'd been waiting there all day, probably charming everyone with his big dumb face, and hitched a ride back to Ward Village on Grandpa's donkey cart. At the village, I forced 2 pfennigs on the chief for the ride despite his protests. Smart business. Be generous with people you'll need again. Grandpa's goodwill is worth way more than 2 coins. We stayed the night. One of the village guys, Jill or Gil or whatever, whispered to the chief, "Is he really a poet? He bought farming tools and a slave." That's not very poetish. Grandpa shut him down instantly. Does it matter if he's a poet? He's not hurting us. Mind your own business. Even if he's the Baron's secret love child, as long as he's harmless to us, we don't ask questions. That's my 60 years of survival wisdom talking. Learn it. I like Grandpa. Grandpa gets it. Next morning, we headed into the mountains. Ryan carried the tools without complaint. Didn't ask where we were going. Didn't whine. Didn't pester me with questions. Smart kid. He'd learned early that curiosity gets you hit, and silence keeps you alive. Sad, but useful. Charlie, meanwhile, would not stop sniffing Ryan, just circling him constantly, shoving his nose into every available body part. Ryan didn't seem scared of the dog, actually seemed to like him. Makes sense. When most humans you've met have been terrible, a friendly dog is a major upgrade. That evening I picked a campsite, and for the first time in my entire wilderness career, I pointed at something and said, "Go collect firewood," and someone did it. I just sat there, waiting, while another person did a chore for me. I didn't have to gather the wood. I didn't have to do everything myself. I pointed, and it happened. This is what power feels like. This is why kings are always smiling in paintings. Having even one person to help is absolutely intoxicating after months of doing literally everything alone. Ryan came back with a perfect armload of dry branches. Good selection. Not too green, not too rotten. Carpenter's kid knows his wood, already proving his value. I lit the fire, set up the new clay pot, and started boiling dried venison. The smoke curled up through the trees. Charlie drooled. And across the fire, Ryan sat cross-legged, staring at the bubbling meat with eyes the size of dinner plates. His stomach growled so loud that Charlie's ears perked up. He clamped his hands over his belly, embarrassed. This kid hadn't eaten a real meal in God knows how long. Famine refugee. Cannon fodder conscript. Def John's punching bag. At his lowest point, he'd gnawed on raw rat skulls just to have something in his stomach. At John's house, being denied food was standard punishment. At the tavern and village, nobody wasted good food on a stranger's slave. When the stew was ready, he sat perfectly still, waiting for me to eat first. Trained behavior. Slaves eat last, if they eat at all. I pulled out 2 bowls. His eyes went confused. 2. Why 2? I filled both to the brim. Steaming hot venison stew, rich and salty, and held one out to him. Eat. Then sleep. Long walk tomorrow. He took the bowl. Stared at it. Steam rising into his face. Warming cheeks that probably hadn't been warm in months. And for just a second, something flickered across his expression. Not gratitude exactly, but something older, deeper. Like a memory. Like a kitchen. Like a father handing him bread and saying, "Eat up, we've got work in the morning." Then he buried his face in the bowl and ate like a starving animal, which is exactly what he was. I watched him inhale that stew and thought, this is going to work. This kid is tough, he's smart, he knows wood, and he just needs someone to feed him and not beat him. The bar is literally on the floor, and I just have to step over it. Charlie got his own bowl too, by the way. I bought him a proper dog dish at the market. Because he's a good boy and he deserves nice things. Population of Luke's wilderness resort, now 3. My lord, are you a nobleman? Ryan dropped this bomb casually over dinner, like he was asking about the weather. The kid had licked his bowl cleaner than Charlie licks his, looked up at me with those big blue eyes, and just asked me if I was secretly aristocracy. I almost choked on my soup. What makes you think that? Have you ever seen a nobleman this broke? I'm wearing one shirt and a deerskin jacket. I live in a hole. He backed off, but I could tell he didn't believe me. And honestly, I get it. The kid's perceptive. He'd spent his whole life around commoners, farmers, craftsmen, serfs, and he could tell something about me didn't fit. It wasn't my clothes, obviously. It was the way I talked, the way I carried myself, the way I treated him like a person instead of furniture. He said I reminded him of the village priest, educated, composed, but also like a soldier. A priest with a sword and anger issues. Not the worst description of me, actually. Ryan, tell me about your carpentry skills. His whole face changed. Like someone turned a light on. He straightened up, and for the first time since I'd met him, he actually looked alive. My lord, my father was the best carpenter in our village. Not bragging, just facts. Chairs, tables, wagon wheels, house beams, doors, windows, wooden bowls, buckets, plows, carts. He could build anything. People came from other villages just to ask his advice on construction. I'm not as good as him yet, but I can handle most woodworking jobs. Then he paused, glanced at my pack, and added with just a hint of sass. Actually, my lord, you didn't need to buy all that pottery. I could have carved you bowls and cups from wood. I stared at him. I just spent precious coins on clay pots when I had a walking pottery factory right next to me this whole time. Then he looked up hopefully. Will I be doing carpentry work for you, my lord? Oh, sweet summer child. Yes. Also farming. Also building. Also hunting. Also everything. Everything. Sort of, I said. I'll be honest with you. I bought you because I'm building a homestead in the wilderness. Your woodworking is incredibly valuable to me. But it's not just carpentry. There's farming, construction, all kinds of work. It'll be hard. But you'll eat well. I watched his face for panic. For anger. For that calculating look that says, I'm going to run the first chance I get. Instead, he looked relieved. The kid had survived famine, war, and Def John. Hard work with food was apparently a massive upgrade from beatings without food. The bar for his happiness was so low it was underground, and I'd just barely stepped over it. We split the night watch, him first half, me second, and slept in the forest. Nobody died. Progress. Next day, midday, we followed the river back to my place. Charlie trotted ahead like he owned the road. And then Ryan saw it. He stopped walking. His jaw dropped. Literally dropped. Mouth open, eyes wide, frozen mid-step like someone had hit pause. My lord, this is what you call barren land? Look, I might have undersold it slightly. In my defense, compared to a real estate listing, it is barren. No roads, no neighbors, no pizza delivery. But through Ryan's eyes, the fence came first. 8-foot sharpened stakes woven tight with vines, surrounding the entire compound like a miniature fort. Massive elk antlers mounted on the gate like a coat of arms that screams, "The person who lives here kills large animals for fun." Then the wolf skeletons. 3 of them, impaled on stakes 200 yards out. Just bones now, picked clean by birds, but still arranged in the classic "mess with me and this happens to you" display. Ryan stared at those for a long time. Then we walked closer, and he saw the field. His legs actually buckled. 1/5 of an acre of gorgeous green rye, 16 inches tall, swaying in the autumn breeze like an emerald ocean. Thick, healthy, vibrant stalks packed tight, growing with a vigor that simply does not exist anywhere else in this entire kingdom. Ryan grew up farming. He knew crops, and what he was looking at broke his brain. My lord, what is happening with this rye?" His voice came out as a whisper. His eyes were the size of his empty soup bowl. He'd farmed in Provence. He'd seen fields around Cooper Castle. He had never, in his entire life, seen crops this healthy. I shrugged casually, like this was totally normal, and I wasn't internally screaming with pride. "Oh, that? Just used some special techniques. Nothing weird. No witchcraft. Think of it as divine inspiration." I chose those words very carefully. The church runs everything in this era. If Ryan decided I was doing sorcery, the best-case scenario is he runs away screaming. Worst case, I get burned at a stake. So, God did it. God taught me farming. I am simply God's humble agricultural instrument. Amen. Ryan immediately crossed himself, and his face broke into the biggest smile I'd seen from him. "My lord, this land has been blessed by God. And you have been blessed by God. Sure, kid. Let's go with that. God definitely taught me about nitrogen fixation and crop rotation." The Almighty himself whispered, "Use composted human waste," into my ear. Very holy stuff. But his excitement was genuine and infectious. He wasn't just amazed by the crops. He was doing the math. He was going to live here, on this blessed, abundant, well-defended, well-stocked land, with a master who fed him actual food and gave him warm clothes. After years of starvation, war, and abuse, he'd somehow stumbled into the best gig in medieval France. Even as a slave. Even that. The fact that being owned by a stranger in the mountains was the best thing that had happened to him in years tells you everything about this era. I didn't waste any time. "Ryan, you see my house. It's tiny. Can't fit 2 people. I want to build a real wooden cabin on the other side." Thoughts? He studied the area, chewed his lip, actual carpenter brain engaged, and shook his head. "My lord, I wouldn't recommend starting now. Winter's almost here. We can't finish a proper house before the snow comes. Better to expand your current cabin for now and build the real one before harvest next year." I blinked. That was extremely good advice. Practical. Experienced. Exactly the kind of thinking I'd been missing while doing everything alone with zero construction knowledge. This kid is going to be worth it. Agreed, I said. But first, we need to build something else. Something important. What's that? A mill. Ryan's eyes went wide again. A mill. Out here. In the wilderness. Built by 2 people with hand tools. Welcome to Luke's Wilderness Resort, Ryan. The work never stops. The boss talks to his dog, and apparently we're building industrial infrastructure now. Grab a hammer. We start tomorrow. Day 1 with an employee, and I'm already drunk on delegation. Ryan, dig the foundation. Ryan, carry these logs. Ryan, hand me that stake. It's like having a second pair of arms that doesn't complain and actually knows what it's doing. 4 months, I've been a one-man construction company. Architect, laborer, lumberjack, carpenter, and lunch lady all in one exhausted body. Now I point at things and they get done. This must be what CEOs feel like. Except my office is a mud pit and my employee sleeps on the floor hugging a dog. Speaking of sleeping arrangements, my house was designed for 1 person and a dog. Adding a teenager to the equation turned it into a sardine can. Ryan's bed was a pile of straw on the floor with a deerskin blanket and Charlie as his personal heater. He didn't complain. In fact, he seemed thrilled. His previous accommodation was half a room separated from farm animal poop by a wooden plank at Def John's house, so a straw pile in a smoke-scented cabin was basically the Ritz. But I didn't start with the house expansion. I started with the mill. Because what's the point of growing the most magnificent wheat in the kingdom if I can't grind it into flour? That's like owning a sports car with no wheels. Gorgeous and completely useless. Now, every mill Ryan had ever seen was powered by donkeys or humans walking in circles pushing a big stick. The idea of building one next to a river confused him deeply. My lord, are you sure about building it by the river? I've never seen a mill near water. They're usually on hilltops or at the edge of villages. The mill operators are always secretive about the insides. They never let anyone in because they're skimming flour off the top. Not that I'm questioning you. Just curious. Poor kid was terrified of offending me. He added so many disclaimers to his question, it sounded like a legal document. Just trust me and build it. You'll see, he nodded. If the magic farming man says build a river mill, you build a river mill. The crops had earned me unlimited credibility. Here's what Ryan doesn't know. Water mills exist. Monks use them in their monasteries. But those selfish robe-wearing prayer enthusiasts kept the technology to themselves because it meant they didn't have to do manual labor and could spend more time being holy. Meanwhile, the entire rest of the kingdom is making donkeys walk in circles like it's still the Stone Age. Classic knowledge hoarding. The monks gatekeep mill technology the same way lords gatekeep everything else. Day 1. I chopped trees. Ryan dug the foundation. And oh my god, the iron tools. The saw. Do you have any idea what it's like to go from hacking at tree trunks with an axe for 40 minutes to sawing through them in 5? I nearly wept. Logs that used to take me half a day were done in minutes. Clean cuts. Straight edges. I kept running my fingers over the smooth sawn surfaces like a crazy person. Beautiful. So beautiful. Ryan probably thinks his new master has a wood fetish. Ryan with the iron shovel was equally revelatory. The foundation I spent 2 days digging with a wooden paddle? He finished in half a day. We are living in the Iron Age now, and everything is faster and better, and I want to kiss every tool I bought. By noon, the foundation was ready. By evening, the basic structure was up. One day, it took me over a week to build my cabin alone, and we threw up a mill shed in a single day. 2 people with real tools versus 1 person with sticks. It's not even a competition. The mill building itself was ugly, just a functional woodshed. No Pinterest-worthy rustic charm. But ugly and functional is my entire design philosophy at this point. Works first, looks never. Dinner was rabbit stew with wild vegetables. Ryan inhaled 3 bowls like a vacuum cleaner with curly hair, burped contentedly, and hit me with this. My lord, do you know what the happiest thing in the world is? I expected something philosophical. Maybe freedom. Maybe safety. Eating 3 meals a day, he was genuinely amazed that breakfast exists. His entire life, everyone he'd known ate twice a day, lunch at noon, dinner at sunset. Morning food was not a concept. The church even encouraged 2 meals a day for spiritual reasons, which is easy to preach when you're a fat bishop with a wine cellar. For everyone else, 2 meals wasn't piety, it was poverty. My lord, I worked hard all day today, but I haven't been this happy in years. I didn't even know breakfast was a thing until yesterday. The kid was radiating pure joy because I fed him 3 times. 3 times. That's all it took to earn genuine loyalty from a human being. Not gold, not promises, not power. Just regular meals. This era is so depressing it makes my chest hurt. Ryan cleaned every dish without being asked. I kept cooking duty, partly because food is a strategic resource you don't hand over, partly because Ryan would probably eat the ingredients before they reached the pot. Next day, the water wheel. This was the moment of truth. I directed, Ryan built. His carpentry skills were real. The kid's hands moved with confidence the moment wood was involved. We constructed a small wheel, nothing fancy, definitely not monastery scale, but enough for our purposes. I'd named the Big Green River, Emerald River, because apparently I'm sentimental now. The mill sat at a downhill section where the current was steady but not violent. We dug a channel to direct water flow to the wheel, built a wooden gate as a valve to control it, then spent several more days finding, hauling, and positioning 2 flat stones as grinding surfaces. The bottom one stayed fixed, the top one spun, connected to the water wheel by a wooden axle. Finding stones smooth and flat enough was its own adventure. We're not stonemasons. We're a farmer and a teenager with chisels and hope. But we hammered and scraped until we had something workable. Finally, the moment arrived. I tossed some hard nuts into the top stone's hole as a test. Looked at Ryan. Looked at the wooden gate holding back the water. Grabbed the board. Pulled it open. Water rushed through the channel, hit the wheel, and the wheel turned. The axle spun. The top millstone began to rotate against the bottom one, slowly at first, then faster. The nuts crackled and ground between the stones, and within moments, fine powder was spilling out the sides. It worked. It worked. Ryan's mouth fell open for the second time since arriving. My lord, this is a miracle, not a miracle, kid. Just physics, engineering, and a man who remembers things he shouldn't know. But sure, let's call it divine intervention. God wants us to have flour. Who am I to argue? A working watermill. In the wilderness. Built by 2 people in less than a week. No donkeys required. No monks consulted. No lords taking a cut. When my wheat is ready, I'm going to grind it into the finest flour this side of the mountains. And then I'm going to bake bread. Real bread. For the first time since I arrived in this world. I might actually cry when that happens. And I won't even blame the wood ash. Winter prep montage. Cue the dramatic music. First order of business. House expansion. My cozy one-man cave needed to become a cozy 2-man cave because Ryan was currently sleeping on the floor using Charlie as a living blanket. Ryan didn't complain. His previous bed was the poop side of Def John's house. But I have some standards for my employees. Very low standards, but they exist. I climbed onto the roof and started ripping it apart. The same roof I built with my bare hands months ago, painstakingly sealed with mud and straw. Now I was tearing it down like a maniac. If my house had feelings, it would need therapy. This time, I did things smarter. My original approach, digging a pit the depth of a grave and living in it, was stupid. Way too deep. For a simple wooden house, 3 feet of foundation is plenty. I'm not building a skyscraper. So the new section got a shallow foundation, filled halfway with rubble, then actual wooden walls built on top, like a civilized person. Revolutionary concept. Houses that go up instead of down. The catch? The new section was higher than the old section. So I built a little stone staircase between them. From outside, the roof looked like a weird roller coaster. Up, flat, up, down. An architect would cry. A building inspector would faint. But it worked, and that's all that matters in the kingdom of Luke. Ryan earned his purchase price 10 times over during this project. The kid with the plane and chisel was like watching an artist. While I'd been slapping bark-covered logs onto roofs like a caveman, he was shaving wood smooth and flat, creating actual planks that looked like they belonged in a real building. His father taught him well. And the iron nails. I'd bought nails at the blacksmith without even thinking about it, and now I was hammering them in instead of doing my ridiculous chisel a hole, jam in a peg, split the peg, jam in another peg technique from before. What used to take an hour took 30 seconds. Technology, baby. It's beautiful. Half a month. That's all it took for both of us to finish the expansion. My first cabin took me almost a week alone with primitive tools. Having a skilled helper plus iron tools is basically cheating. Ryan walked into his new room, 8 feet wide, 6 feet tall, 5 feet long, containing exactly 1 mud bed and nothing else, and said with genuine enthusiasm, "Not as bad as I expected, my lord. The bar remains underground." And Ryan remains delighted by it. Next, firewood storage. Because here's something nobody thinks about until it's too late. Firewood is listed first in fuel, food, oil, salt, for a reason. When it's negative stupid degrees outside and the snow is waist deep, you do not want to be trudging into the forest with an axe. You want to be sitting by the fire, warm and smug, with a mountain of pre-cut wood 10 steps from your door. We built a woodshed. Simple, foundation, walls, roof, mud seal. Honestly, at this point, I could build basic structures in my sleep. I'm a one-trick pony, but the trick is rectangular wooden buildings, and I do it great. Filled the shed with pre-chopped firewood until it was nearly overflowing. Everything was ready. House expanded. Wood stored. Food preserved. Mill built. Crops growing. Then the snow came. Small flakes at first, drifting down like lazy feathers. But they didn't stop. They fell all day, all night. By morning, the entire world was white. The mountains, the trees, the river banks, everything buried under a quiet, glittering blanket. It was beautiful. It was also cold. Ryan and I huddled inside by the fireplace, peering out the window at our frozen kingdom. The house expansion held up pretty well, not as windproof as I'd hoped, but the fireplace kept things warm enough. Charlie was curled up in his corner, perfectly content. And then I noticed the other occupants of our living room. The chickens, both of them, inside, with us. Because somebody, me, the alleged genius farmer with advanced agricultural knowledge, forgot to winterize the chicken coop. Just completely forgot those two feathered idiots existed until midnight when their screaming woke me up. I ran outside in the snow, found them half frozen, feathers puffed out, pressed against each other for warmth, looking at me with pure betrayal in their tiny eyes. Brought them inside. They spent the night thawing by the fireplace like two very angry snowballs. Nearly died. My fault entirely. I felt genuinely terrible about it, not out of sympathy, but because those birds have been laying eggs. A whole basket of eggs sat by my bed. Those chickens are assets, not pets, and I almost killed my assets through negligence. Bad management. Very bad. One day of indoor chicken occupancy produced enough poop to redecorate my entire floor. Chickens do not understand bathrooms. Chickens do not understand anything. They are poop machines with feathers, and I needed them out. Once the snow stops, we're reinforcing that coop immediately and evicting these tenants, I announced. Agreed, my lord, Ryan said, sipping the hot water I forced him to drink. Nobody here drinks hot water. Nobody in this entire era drinks hot water. They drink cold water full of bacteria and then wonder why they get sick. I made Ryan drink hot water, and he looked at me like I'd asked him to drink poison. But, my lord, it's warm water. Yeah, that's the point. Just drink it. Ryan mentioned we had about a month before the real deep winter locked us indoors for good. Time to gather more firewood and food while we still could. I nodded. Good thinking. Then I finished my water, turned around, and smiled in a way that apparently made Ryan nervous. Ryan. Yes, my lord. How do you feel about hunting wild? Or, his face went through about 7 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, realization, fear, more fear, additional fear, a tiny bit of excitement, and then back to fear. A 300-pound angry pig with tusks that can gut a man. In winter, with 2 people, a half-trained dog, and a bow I can barely shoot. This is either going to be my greatest triumph or my dumbest death. Either way, it's going to make a great story. Wild boar. 300 pounds of anger, tusks, and bad attitude wrapped in a hairy cannonball. The kind of animal that charges first and never asks questions. Tusks that can snap ribs like twigs. Jaws that can crush your fingers like breadsticks. A temperament that makes the wolf pack look like therapy dogs. And I said, let's go hunt one. Because apparently surviving wolves, hornets, and near starvation wasn't exciting enough for me. I need to add death by pig to my risk portfolio. Here's my reasoning, and it is reasonable even if it sounds insane. I'd found a boar den on my way back from the village months ago. Just one mother and a few piglets. Small family. No big deal. For now. But wild boars breed like they're trying to set records. Leave them alone for a year, and suddenly you've got 50 of them stampeding through your wheat field like a pork-flavored apocalypse. Better to deal with one angry mama now than 50 angry everything later. Ryan's face when I proposed this was a masterpiece of poorly concealed terror. My lord, just the 2 of us? Isn't that a bit risky? Yes, I said, leaning back in the very nice chair he'd built me. One of the perks of owning a carpenter, actual furniture with backrests, but we're not going to fight it face to face. That's what idiots do. We're using our brains. Ryan looked marginally less terrified. Marginally. The preparation took days. While I worked on braiding a trip rope from specially treated vines, boiled, dried, and twisted until they were tough as leather cord, Ryan sharpened wooden stakes to lethal points. We were building a kill box. Medieval special ops. Mission, bacon. Meanwhile, my daily routine now included archery practice. Every single day, minimum 1 hour, rain or shine or snow. No excuses. The wolf attack taught me that a bow I can't aim is just an expensive stick. After weeks of practice, I was hitting the target at 20 yards, not bullseyes, but actual hits. 3 arrows in the target zone during today's session. Not great. Not terrible. Good enough to hunt with if the animal is large and relatively close. Like, say, a 300-pound pig. I also practiced sword drills. My blade had notches in it now from the wolf fight, but it still caught the light beautifully. My swordsmanship isn't fancy, no elegant knight techniques, no family secret moves. Just stab the thing before it stabs you. Learned through multiple near-death experiences on real battlefields. Ugly but effective. Ryan caught me practicing, and his eyes went wide. My lord, you know SWORDCRAFT. Knights treat combat techniques like classified documents. Family secrets passed down through generations, never shared with commoners. Every knight family claims their technique is totally unique and special, even though from a distance they're all basically doing the same thing. Hit the other guy harder. But it keeps them on top of the social hierarchy, so they guard it jealously. I'm not a knight. I'm a farmer who survived too many battles through sheer stubbornness. But Ryan doesn't need to know that. Let him think I'm impressive. It's good for morale. Something like that, I said, wiping sweat off my forehead. Oh, and Ryan made apple-stewed deer meat for dinner. Yes, that's a real dish. Apples and venison cooked together. Medieval cuisine is weird. But when your only cooking equipment is a pot, a fire, and whatever you can scrounge from the forest, you stop judging combinations. It actually tasted decent. Ryan ate 4 servings and mentioned he wished we had honey for glazed rabbit. Kid's developing a palate. Give him 6 months, and he'll be a food critic. Hunting day. Pre-dawn. Snow everywhere, which was actually helpful. Tracks show up perfectly in white. We hiked half a day to the boar den. Found it exactly where I remembered. A wide cave mouth in a valley, at least 10 feet across, pitch black inside, reeking of pig stink so powerful it practically had physical weight. Somewhere in that darkness, 300 pounds of maternal fury was sleeping with her babies. The plan had 3 parts. Part 1. Ryan takes the shovel and stakes to the forest behind the cave and digs a deep pit. 10 feet, no shortcuts. After the deer incident, I wasn't taking chances. This time the pit would have sharpened stakes at the bottom. Even if the boar doesn't die from the fall, the stakes will wound it badly enough to finish off. Part 2. I set up the trip rope across the boar's natural exit path from the cave. Vines stretched low to the ground, nearly invisible in the snow. A charging boar hits those at full speed, stumbles, loses momentum, and hopefully tumbles straight into the pit. Part 3. Force the boar out of the cave toward the trap. That's my job. The bait. The guy who pokes the angry pig and then runs for his life. Setting the trip rope was the scariest part of prep. Boars have incredible noses and ears. One wrong step, one strong scent, and Mama Pig comes rocketing out of that cave like a tussed freight train before the trap is ready. I smeared grass juice all over myself to mask my smell and walked like I was defusing a bomb. Every step placed like my life depended on it, because it literally did. Done. Rope set. Stakes planted in the pit. Everything in position. I looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at me. We both looked at the dark cave entrance that smelled like the world's worst barn. All right, I said. Now for the fun part. By fun, I mean the part where I make a wild boar very angry and then try not to die. Wish me luck. If this works, we eat pork all winter. If it doesn't, the pork eats us. Nighttime. Snow on the ground. A dark cave reeking of pig stench. And me, belly down in the snow 20 yards from the entrance, holding a fire arrow like the world's most underprepared action hero. Let me walk you through the plan one more time, because even I can't believe I'm doing this. Step 1. Shoot a flaming arrow into a sleeping pig's bedroom. Step 2. Make the 300-pound mother of all angry pigs chase me through the forest. Step 3. Don't die. Step 4. Profit. Foolproof. Absolutely foolproof. Nothing could possibly go wrong. I lit the straw, smeared animal fat on the arrow, tied the burning bundle to the shaft, knelt in the snow, drew the bow, aimed at the dark mouth of the cave where I could hear snoring, actual pig snoring, like a tiny chainsaw convention, and whispered to myself, hit. The arrow flew. A red streak cutting through the darkness like a tiny comet. It disappeared into the cave, and for one beautiful, silent second, nothing happened. Then the cave caught fire. Boars lined their dens with dry straw for bedding. I just shot a fire arrow into a room made of kindling. The whole place went up like someone poured gasoline on a campfire. Smoke billowed out. Orange light flickered from inside. And then, SQEL, 5 pigs exploded out of that cave like furry cannonballs fired from a cannon of pure rage. One massive mother and 4 babies, tumbling over each other, screaming in pig language, smoke pouring off their backs. The babies huddled under Mama, shaking, pressing into her belly, absolutely terrified. I was already running. Not jogging, not trotting, full sprint. Because the moment that mother pig saw me, the one moving creature in her line of sight after her house just exploded. Her eyes went cherry red and her brain had exactly one thought. Kill that thing. She abandoned her babies instantly. Mom of the year, this pig. 300 pounds of pure maternal fury redirected into murderous pursuit. Her hooves hit the frozen ground like hammers, each stride closing the distance between us with horrifying speed. My lord, this way. Over here. Ryan was already up a tree. Smart kid, learned fast, waving his arms frantically, pointing me toward the trap route. Very helpful directional assistance. Would have been more helpful if he'd come down and carried me. But sure, shouting from safety works too. The boar was fast, terrifyingly fast, snorting white clouds of breath, tusks gleaming, eyes locked on me like guided missiles. I could hear her closing in. Thud, 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 each hoofbeat shaking the ground. If she caught me, those tusks would go through my ribs like a knife through butter. Then I saw it, the patch of ground where the trip rope was hidden under a thin layer of snow. I lifted my feet high, stepped over the rope, spun around, and drew my bow. The boar hit the rope at full gallop. 300 pounds of forward momentum meets one braided vine at ankle height. Physics did the rest. Her front leg stopped. Her body did not. She flipped, actually flipped, end over end through the air like a furry barrel roll and slammed into the snow with a crash that probably registered on whatever medieval people use instead of seismographs. Boom. I knocked an arrow. Aimed for her eye. Drew. Released. Hit her forehead. Forehead. 2 inches from where I was aiming. My archery is improving in the same way a D- student improves to a D. Technically progress, technically still failing. But I didn't waste time feeling sorry for myself. The arrow bounced off her thick skull, and she was already getting up, and she was more angry now. Not less. More. Because here's the thing about wild boars that makes them uniquely terrifying among all forest animals. Pain makes them angry. Wolves feel pain and think, maybe this isn't worth it. Deer feel pain and think, time to run. Boars feel pain and think, now I'm going to eat your entire family. They're the berserkers of the animal kingdom. The more you hurt them, the harder they come. They don't stop until they're literally about to die, and only then do they consider retreating. This is also exactly why my plan works. I need her angry. I need her stupid with rage, charging blindly, not thinking, not smelling the trap ahead. She charged again. Full speed, bleeding from the forehead, foaming at the mouth, absolutely insane with fury. I ran to the tree where Ryan was perched, and he grabbed my arms and hauled me up just as the boar thundered past below us. We clung to the branches like 2 very scared squirrels, watching 300 pounds of pork rage disappear into the trees, directly toward the pit. Then we heard it. A crash. A squeal so loud and horrible it echoed off the mountains. Then more squealing, weaker, wetter, more desperate. She'd hit the pit. And the stakes. We climbed down and crept to the edge. 10 feet below, the mother boar was impaled on multiple wooden spikes. Through her belly, her side, her haunch. Blood pooled around her, staining the snow crimson. She looked up at us with eyes that were finally shifting from rage to fear. She thrashed. She screamed. She tried to pull free. My lord, is she dead? Ryan whispered. Not yet. They're tough. I emptied every remaining arrow into her. Each one made her jerk and cry out, but weaker each time. Like a machine running out of power. The squeals faded to groans. The thrashing slowed to twitching. When she finally went completely still, I climbed down with the axe and put one clean chop through her neck. Blood surged out like a broken dam. Done. Finished. 300 pounds of wild boar, terminated. I stood in the pit, covered in blood and snow and sweat, breathing like I'd just run a marathon, holding a bloody axe, surrounded by wooden stakes and a dead pig. This is my life now. This is what I do. I shoot fire arrows into pig caves and then run for my life through snowy forests while being chased by berserker hogs. Normal stuff. Ryan, go collect the piglets. Take my sword and a torch. They're small, shouldn't give you trouble. Yes, my lord. He puffed up his chest, and marched toward the cave like a tiny soldier. The kid watched me bait a 300-pound boar with a fire arrow, trip it with a rope, dodge it under a tree, and fill it full of arrows. His confidence in me, and by extension, in himself, was through the roof. The piglets were young, barely dangerous. Ryan could handle them, and the cold weather meant Mama Pig's body wouldn't rot overnight. We'd come back for her tomorrow. For now, for baby boars rounded up and herded back toward the cabin by a 15-year-old with a sword and a torch, following a blood-splattered man carrying a bow and an axe through a snowy forest in the middle of the night. Just another evening at Luke's wilderness resort. Now accepting piglet guests, breakfast included. Check out as never. I found Ryan tying up the last piglet like a rodeo champion, 3 others already bundled up on the ground, hooves to the sky, squealing like tiny furry fire alarms. The kid had initiative. I like that. My lord, you killed the boar already. Yep. Just need to haul it back tomorrow. The piglets were screaming. For tiny rage machines, shrieking into the night like they were being personally offended by the concept of rope. Ryan had tied them to a carrying pole. Smart move, because herding baby pigs through a dark snowy forest is like herding chaos itself. You'd lose 3 before you took 10 steps. Looking at those piglets, I felt something I didn't expect, sadness. Not for sentimental reasons, I'm way past that, but because I couldn't keep them. In a perfect world, I'd raise these little guys into big pigs, breed them, have a whole pig farm. Pork forever, bacon dreams. But winter was breathing down my neck. I had 0 pig feed stored, nowhere to house them, and no time to build a pig pen. These babies were destined for the dinner table, not the retirement home. Maybe next year, if I can find more boars, if I can catch them alive. If. The wilderness is nothing but ifs, strung together with rope and stubbornness. We split the load, 2 piglets each, and started the hike home. Ryan was struggling under the weight. 60 pounds of angry pork swinging from a stick on your shoulders is no joke for a skinny teenager. My lord, he said between grunts, I've been eating meat every day, and somehow I feel worse. Is that normal? Then he immediately looked guilty. Like complaining about too much meat was the most ungrateful thing a former starving slave could possibly say. Totally normal, I told him. Humans can't live on just meat. Your body needs variety. Once we're done with the pig, we're going vegetable hunting. Yes, my lord. He paused, then got this dreamy look. You know, when all I had was black bread, I dreamed about meat every night. Now that I have meat every day, I dream about bread, Ryan. When our wheat comes in next year, you're going to cry into your first loaf. Our wheat, he repeated softly, and I could see the word, our, hit him like a warm blanket. He whispered something about God's blessings, and I pretended not to hear because I'm not good at emotional moments. Next morning, Operation Retrieve 300 pounds of dead pig. Now, I vividly remember dragging a 400-pound deer home on a plank sled by myself. My shoulders still haven't forgiven me. I was not doing that again. This time, we were building wheels. Ryan, can you make a wheel? His face lit up. Yes, my lord. I built a 2-wheeled cart with my father once. Jackpot. The one thing I couldn't figure out, how to carve a round wheel with just an axe and knife, was something this kid had literally done before. Buying Ryan was the single best purchase of my life. Better than the iron tools. Better than the salt. Better than everything. We're making a wheelbarrow. 1 wheel, 0.1 wheel. I drew the design in the snow with a stick. Single wheel up front, 2 handles in back, flatboard on top. A wheelbarrow. The most beautiful, practical, forest navigating invention in human history. 2-wheeled carts are great on roads. In a mountain forest full of trees, rocks, and narrow trails, 1-wheel turns where 2 wheels get stuck. Maneuverability, baby. Ryan studied the drawing, nodded, and got to work. The wheel was the star of the show. He didn't try to carve one solid disc, which would take forever. Instead, he cut several half-moon shapes with his axe and plane, fitted them together into a circle, then connected them to a central axle with small wooden spokes. His hands moved with the confidence of someone doing something they learned at their father's knee. It was genuinely beautiful to watch. I built the frame, handles, board, support struts. No fancy cargo box, just a flat platform we'd tie stuff to with vines. A box would take too long and break anyway. One single day, and we had a working wheelbarrow. I grabbed the handles and took it for a test drive. Smooth, balanced, responsive. I was zipping around the yard like a kid with a new toy, grinning like an idiot. Ryan tried next, tipped it over in 4 steps, then 6 steps, then 8, then gave up and just walked behind me looking embarrassed while I wheelbarrowed triumphantly toward the boar pit. At the pit, reality hit. The pig was frozen stiff, but definitely not rotting. Thank you, Winter. And there was absolutely no way 2 people were lifting 300 pounds of solid pig out of a 10-foot hole. So I jumped in and butchered it right there in the pit. Standing in a hole, surrounded by bloody steaks and a dead pig, carving up my kill like the world's most vertical butcher shop. Pig skin only took the top half. Wild boar hide is tougher to tan than deer or rabbit, and I mainly needed it for my shield cover and tool grips. Not worth the effort of processing the whole thing. Then the fun part. Chopped off all 4 legs. Handed them up to Ryan. Opened the belly, removed heart, liver, lungs. Then, the moment of maximum anxiety. Tied off both ends of the intestines and very carefully lifted the entire gut package up to Ryan above me. The entire time I was thinking, if that large intestine ruptures while it's directly over my head, I will be showered in pig waste from above, and I will simply lie down and die. It didn't rupture. The angels were watching. Hacked the rib cage apart. No artistry, no technique, just chop, chop, chop until everything was in manageable pieces. Beautiful? No. Edible? Yes. Good enough. Pried out the 2 tusks as souvenirs. Left the ugly pig head in the hole. Wild boar faces look like nightmares carved from beef jerky. No decorative value whatsoever. Loaded roughly 200 pounds onto the wheelbarrow, tied it down, and started pushing. Halfway home, the wheelbarrow made a concerning creaking sound and started leaning. Our craftsmanship, it turns out, had limits. Took some weight off, gave it to Ryan's back, and limped home before dark. Expanded the root cellar, shoved everything underground where the cold dirt would keep it fresh, and walked inside holding only 2 things, the boar tusks. November nights are long. No entertainment. No books, no music, no anything. Just darkness and the crackling fire and hours of nothing until sleep comes. But tonight was different. I took the hollow tusks, poured in some animal fat I'd been rendering and saving in a jar, twisted a straw into a wick, and lit it from the fireplace. A tiny flame flickered to life inside the curved ivory tusk. Warm, golden light spilled across the cabin, pushing back the darkness, dancing on the walls, reflecting in my eyes and Ryan's. Ryan stared at it like he'd witnessed a miracle. My lord, there's light. Yeah, kid, there's light. A candle made from pig teeth and rendered fat. Not exactly a chandelier, but in a dark cabin in a dark forest in a dark age, that little flame was everything. We sat there in the glow, me, Ryan, Charlie curled at my feet, watching the shadows dance on the walls of our expanding little kingdom. Pig tusks. Who knew they'd make such good lamps? Added to the list of sentences I never thought I'd say. Pig processing went fast thanks to my dear butchering expertise. I'm basically a medieval meat factory at this point. Smoked pork, dried pork, pig skin for my shield and tool handles. Efficiency level, expert. The real challenge? The chickens. See, I'd fixed the chicken coop, added thick walls, sand floor for moisture control, straw insulation, hot water bowl. Ryan built that. And a proper door. Winterized and cozy. A 5-star chicken hotel by medieval standards. The chickens refused to go back. These ungrateful feathered squatters had spent a few nights in MY house, next to MY fireplace, in MY warmth, and now they thought they lived here. I opened the door and pointed outside. They looked at me, looked at the fireplace, looked at me again, then started doing laps around the cabin, clucking defiantly, absolutely refusing to leave. I tried shooing them. They dodged. I tried hurting them. They split up like they'd rehearsed it. I tried reasoning with them, which tells you how desperate I was. The coop is nice now. I fixed it, while 2 chickens stared at me with their tiny dinosaur brains thinking, warm house good, cold outside bad. I had to physically catch each one and carry them to the coop like screaming, flapping, pooping toddlers. They protested the entire way. Marriage counseling, winter housing complaints. These chickens have more drama than a royal court. I was shoveling chicken poop out of my house, because that's what indoor poultry leaves behind, when Ryan came sprinting out of the forest like his pants were on fire. My lord, guess what I found? He was supposed to be collecting apples. Instead, he came back vibrating with excitement, barely able to breathe, looking like a kid who'd just discovered Christmas. Parsnips. My lord, I found parsnips. I stared at him blankly. What's a parsnip? Ryan's excitement hit a wall of confusion. He couldn't believe I didn't know. He started gesturing wildly. White. Long. Umbrella leaves on top. Like a carrot, but not a carrot. Looking increasingly distressed that his big discovery was landing on an audience who had no idea what he was talking about. Then he explained, and I understood why he was losing his mind. Parsnips are basically the medieval cheat code. They look like white carrots. They're loaded with starch, so they work as a bread substitute. And here's the kicker. When you cook them, they turn sweet. Actually sweet. In an era where sugar is literally more valuable than salt, where a bag of sugar can be used as currency, where sweetness is a luxury reserved for nobles who drizzle honey on everything, these ugly root vegetables just taste sweet, for free, growing wild, in a field nobody owns. And there's a whole field of them. Ryan was practically dancing. I grabbed a basket, and we sprinted to the forest like two maniacs. He wasn't exaggerating. Beyond the apple grove, a massive patch of parsnip plants spread across the ground, their umbrella-shaped leaves waving at us like, "Hey, we've been here this whole time, you idiots." I'd walked right past this spot when I discovered the apples. Walked right past free food because I didn't know what a parsnip looked like. Ryan just paid for himself again. He yanked one out of the ground, white, dirty, lumpy, beautiful, and held it over his head like a trophy. The grin on his face could have powered the entire kingdom's lighting needs. In my world, this is a vegetable. In Ryan's world, this is a meal, a bread substitute, and a dessert all in one. I brought the wheelbarrow. We spent half the day hauling load after load. 7, 8 trips. Mountains of parsnips. Left about a tenth in the ground for next year's regrowth, because I'm not an idiot who kills the golden goose. Or the golden parsnip. Whatever. Then, just as we were about to head home, I glanced sideways and spotted something green and spiky. Ryan, what's that over there? He squinted. Stinging nettles, my lord. Touch them, and they burn like hornets. Knights use them to whip disobedient serfs. Very unpleasant. Can you eat them? Eat? Ryan looked at me like I'd suggested eating fire. In his mind, nettles were punishment, not food. An instrument of pain. The botanical equivalent of a whip. And here I was, wrapping my hands in deer leather gloves and picking them like salad greens. Cook them long enough, and they're perfectly fine. Good nutrition, too. Ryan watched me harvest stinging death plants with the expression of a man witnessing either genius or insanity and unable to determine which. I didn't pick many. One look at Ryan's horrified face told me he wasn't eating them voluntarily. Baby steps. That evening, I made parsnip and dried meat soup with some wild roots. The parsnips dissolved into the broth and turned it slightly sweet, fragrant, and thick. It was, without exaggeration, the best thing I'd cooked since arriving in this world. Actual flavor. Actual sweetness. Not just salty meat water, but genuine, complex, delicious soup. Ryan ate 3 bowls and looked like he was about to propose marriage to a root vegetable. Then the sky darkened. The temperature dropped. The wind picked up. December had arrived. And with it, real winter. The kind of winter that kills people. The kind that doesn't care about your parsnips or your fireplace or your carefully stockpiled firewood. The kind that just buries everything in white and waits. But for the first time since I came to this forest, I looked at the snow and didn't feel afraid. Smoked deer jerky, dried boar meat, baskets of apples, mountains of parsnips, a cellar full of pork, eggs from my dramatic chickens, salt, a warm cabin with a fireplace, a stocked woodshed, a working mill, a young carpenter, a loyal dog, and a lamp made from pig tusks. Bring it on, December. I'm ready. The door creaked open and warmth hit me like a hug from the house itself. My breath turned to white fog that evaporated instantly in the heat of the cabin. The fireplace was roaring, popping and crackling like it was putting on a performance. I hung my soaking deerskin coat on the drying rack and held my frozen hands near the flames until my fingers remembered they were supposed to bend. On the fireplace, a pot of parsnip and pork rib soup was bubbling away. Thick, fragrant, the kind of smell that makes your stomach growl even when you're exhausted. Home cooking. My home cooking. In my home. with an actual fireplace and furniture and tusk lamps and everything. 6 months ago, I was drinking stream water face down like an animal. Look at me now. My lord. You're back? Ryan's voice drifted down from his little loft space, the expansion we built last month. In the warm glow of the tusk lamp, his golden hair looked almost brown. He started pulling himself out of his deerskin blankets. Stay in bed. Don't you dare get up, because Ryan was sick. Had been for days. And not. Oh, I have the sniffles. Sick. Actually sick. Fever, chills, pouring sweat, the whole medieval nightmare package. A fever in this era isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence audition. No medicine. No antibiotics. No anything except lie there and hope your body wins the fight. The medical establishment's contribution? Bleed the patient. Because apparently when someone is already weak and feverish, the obvious solution is to drain some of their blood. And if you die afterward? Well, clearly you didn't pray hard enough. Your fault, really. I did not bleed Ryan. What I did do, fixed the leaky roof that was letting cold air pour onto his sleeping area at night. That's probably what made him sick in the first place, my shoddy construction work on the expansion. My fault. I admitted it to him, too. The mud ceiling wasn't thick enough. Wind got through. He was furthest from the fireplace, had less deer skin than me, and boom, medieval flu. On his worst night, I draped my own deerskin coat over him on top of his blankets, tucked the edges in tight, ordered him not to move a single inch, and spent the entire night feeding him hot water and vegetable broth like a one-man hospital. He sweated through everything. The smell was heroic, truly weapons-grade body odor trapped under leather blankets. But by dawn his fever had broken. His mother died of a fever on the road during the famine. When his own forehead started burning, he thought he was going to die too. He told me later he'd already made peace with it. 15 years old and ready to die because nobody in his entire life had ever bothered to keep him alive through his sickness. He handed me his empty soup bowl with wet eyes. I'm so sorry, my lord. Getting sick at the worst possible time. Stop. Drink your soup. Get better. Then come help me, because winter is somehow the busiest season and I'm losing my mind. He started getting emotional. Tears forming. Lower lip doing the wobble thing. Nope. Crying is not allowed. Save it. If you were a pretty girl, I might tolerate it, but you're a scruffy teenager. Swallow those tears and convert them into recovery energy, he laughed. I laughed. Progress. The reason winter was busy? The wheat was dying. Not all of it. But the snow came down hard a few days ago. Way harder than before. Temperature dropped like a rock. Now, normally, snow is good for winter wheat. It insulates the ground, kills pest eggs, protects the seedlings. Like a cold blanket. A few inches of snow and my crops were actually happier. But this snow was too much. Too heavy, too cold, too fast. The temperature plunged past what young wheat can handle, especially in soil that's only been farmed for one season. New land doesn't hold heat the way established farmland does. My crops were in danger. So every single day, while Ryan lay in bed with a fever, I trudged out into the blizzard with my pickaxe and scraped excess snow off the wheat field. Then I scavenged for dry straw, in winter, when straw is basically non-existent, and laid it over the seedlings as extra insulation. Finding straw in December is like finding ice cream in a volcano. It doesn't exist. Every piece required hiking through knee-deep snow, digging around in frozen forests, and hauling it back on my wheelbarrow. Each trip took half the day. Then I'd come home, cook for both of us, feed Ryan, feed Charlie, feed the chickens, check the crops again, and collapse. Winter was supposed to be my vacation. Sit by the fire. Relax. Maybe whittle something. Instead, I was performing emergency crop surgery in a snowstorm while simultaneously running a one-man hospital for a teenage patient and a small zoo of dependent animals. To keep sane during the long, dark evenings, I started making a rabbit fur hat. Punched holes in the soft pelts with a bone needle, threaded pig tendon through them, shaped it into a cap with ear flaps. It looked ridiculous. It was warm. The flaps covered my ears and cheeks, which had been going numb on my snow-clearing missions. Fashion is dead. Functionality reigns supreme. I held it up to show Ryan. Looking good, my lord, he said diplomatically, which told me it looked terrible. But terrible and warm beats stylish and frostbitten. I patted Charlie's head on the way out. The dog was huge now, thigh height, muscular, smart enough to understand complex commands, loyal enough to stay by Ryan's side all day like a furry nurse. He licked my palm. Good boy. Charlie, watch Ryan. If anything happens, come get me. The dog actually seemed to understand. He settled down next to Ryan's bed with a serious expression, like he'd been promoted to head of medical affairs. I pulled on my rabbit hat, grabbed my pickaxe, and pushed open the door. Cold hit me like a wall. The kind of cold that steals your breath and freezes your nose hairs in 1 second flat. The snow stretched out in every direction, white, silent, endless, beautiful and deadly. 6 months ago, I arrived in this forest with a sword, a dagger, and half a piece of jerky. Now I had a house, a farm, a mill, a carpenter, a dog, 2 chickens, 4 pig carcasses, a cellar full of food, a fireplace, lamps, tools, weapons, and a truly ugly rabbit fur hat. And I was still not relaxing. Because the wilderness doesn't let you relax. It just keeps throwing problems at you. Wolves, hornets, fevers, blizzards. And you keep solving them or you die. Deep breath. Frozen air in my lungs. All right, wheat. Let's keep you alive for one more day. Winter decided to get personal. The wind was slapping my face like it owed me money. Snow was flying sideways. Horizontal assault. Tiny ice needles attacking every exposed inch of skin. I trudged through knee-deep white toward the Emerald River with my trusty pickaxe, looking like the world's most miserable polar explorer. The river was frozen. The stream by my house, frozen solid 2 weeks ago. Every water source within walking distance. Ice. Just ice everywhere. Ice as far as the eye can see. The entire landscape had been replaced by a giant freezer, and I was living in it. No well, no plumbing, no tap to turn. When you need water in winter and everything is frozen, you do what cavemen did. Grab a pointy thing and smash the ice. I walked upstream along the riverbank, looking for a spot where the ice seemed thinner and the water underneath looked clean. Found a promising area, got on my knees, breathed on the surface to clear the frost, and peered through. Water looked decent. Good enough. This'll do. Step 1. Don't fall through the ice and die. The Emerald River is about 200 feet wide and 20 feet deep. The ice was roughly 4 inches thick, strong enough to walk on, but not strong enough for me to feel comfortable walking on. I tested it with 1 foot, keeping the other on the bank like a man who has strong opinions about not drowning. Held my breath for 30 seconds. No cracking sounds. Okay. Full weight. Still no cracking. Okay. I am now standing on frozen water above a 20-foot abyss of cold death. This is fine. Everything is fine. Started chipping. Carefully. The pickaxe hit the ice and sent little crystal shards flying. Very pretty, very dangerous. I couldn't swing too hard, or the whole surface might crack and send me on an involuntary swimming lesson. So I tapped, and tapped, and tapped. Patient, controlled strokes. The most careful demolition work I've ever done. Sweat was actually forming on my forehead, in below freezing weather, by the time I punched through. A rough hole appeared, and I could see dark water flowing underneath. I reached my hand in. Warm. The water was actually warm, or at least warmer than the air, which at this point could be said about literally anything that wasn't the air. The ice acts as insulation. Same principle as my straw-covered wheat fields. Thick ice on top, protected water below. And that gave me an idea. See, my wheat was still in danger. The snow was too heavy, the cold too extreme, and my poor baby seedlings were suffering despite all the straw I'd piled on them. But if ice insulates water, water can insulate soil. If I pour river water onto the ground around the wheat roots, it'll seep in, then freeze into a thin protective layer overnight. A custom-built ice blanket for my crops. Same concept as the straw covers, but liquid. The timing was critical. Had to water in the late afternoon when the soil had slightly thawed, right before nightfall when it would refreeze. Too much water, bad. Wrong timing, counterproductive. At night, disaster. I expanded the ice hole to head size, then started the world's most tedious water hauling operation. 1 clay pot at a time. Clay pot. Because I still don't have a bucket. Ryan had been working on building a proper wooden barrel before he got sick. Turns out barrel making is insanely hard. Each plank needs a specific curve, and a good barrel maker can build an entire career on that one skill. But his fever interrupted everything. So 1 pot. Fill it. Carry it to the field. Set it down. Walk back. Fill another. Carry it. Set it down. Walk back. Repeat approximately 10,000 times. Between water runs, I checked on Ryan. Still feverish, but improving. Charlie was lying next to his bed like a furry bodyguard. The dog was huge now, thigh height, thick, powerful. 6 months ago he fit in my hand. Now he looked like he could take down a wolf solo. He licked my palm and gave me those "everything's under control, boss" eyes. When the snow finally let up and the timing was right, I carefully poured water around each wheat plant's roots. Gentle, measured, like giving medicine to a baby. The cold river water seeped into the soil, darkening it, and I knew that overnight it would freeze into a thin protective shell around the roots. Science. Actual science. In an era where people think disease comes from bad smells, and the cure for everything is prayer and bleeding. Speaking of prayer, when I got back inside and told Ryan the wheat should be okay, he pulled out a tiny wooden cross he'd carved at some point when I wasn't looking and started mumbling prayers with his eyes closed. Kid's got faith. I've got composting techniques. Between the two of us, we've got all the bases covered. Then I went to the root cellar to grab tonight's pork. We'd eaten all 4 piglets over the past few days. I'm not going to pretend I felt good about it. They were cute. They squealed. They had little piglet faces. But they were also delicious, and winter doesn't care about your feelings. Baby pork is incredibly tender. Sorry, piglets. You served your purpose. I opened the cellar hatch, aired it out, and climbed down with a torch. The cellar was small. We'd expanded it some, but it was still basically a fancy hole. Dark, cramped, cold. I reached for a piece of dried meat. Then I heard it. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Gnawing sounds. Tiny claws on dirt walls. Little squeaks. Every hair on my body stood up. I turned my head slowly. 2 tiny points of light reflected back at me from the darkness. Glowing. Staring. Unblinking. I swung the torch toward it, and immediately wished I hadn't. A rat, the size of my foot, sitting in the corner of MY's cellar, drooling, staring at me with beady little eyes that radiated pure entitlement. Its tail was long, greasy, and naked, like a tiny hairless snake attached to a furry nightmare. And around it, several baby rats were scurrying in circles, climbing the walls, doing whatever baby rats do when they've moved into someone else's food storage and declared it home. Its belly was pulsing, breathing heavily. Fat. This thing had been eating my food, my carefully preserved, painstakingly smoked, desperately needed winter provisions. This rat had been having a feast while I was outside in a blizzard saving my wheat and nursing a sick teenager. And it had the audacity to not run away. It just sat there, staring at me, chewing, like I was the intruder, like this was its cellar and I was being rude by showing up with a torch. The nerve, the absolute nerve. You disgusting little. I grabbed a chunk of dirt and hurled it at the rat like a fastball pitcher with anger management issues. The rat, this fat, bloated, smug little monster, just scurried up the wall, around the corner, and vanished into a crack I didn't even know existed. Gone, just like that, with its babies, into the walls of MY's cellar, where MY food was stored, where they would continue to eat MY provisions and multiply and eventually overrun everything. Rats. Rats. I survived wolves. I survived hornets. I survived a charging wild boar and a blizzard and a near-fatal teenager fever. And now I have rats. The wilderness has an endless supply of problems, and it will never stop throwing them at me. The moment I solve one thing, another thing crawls out of a hole, sometimes literally, and says, "Hello, I'm your new nightmare." I climbed out of the cellar, slammed the hatch, and stood in the snow breathing heavily, holding a piece of dried meat in one hand and a torch in the other, wearing a ridiculous rabbit fur hat, absolutely furious at a rodent. This is my life. This is the glamorous frontier existence I chose. Tomorrow, rat war. Tonight, pork soup and rage. I stormed back into the cabin like a man who'd just been personally insulted by a rodent. Which is exactly what happened. "What's wrong, my lord?" Ryan sat up in bed, eyes wide, probably imagining wolves or bandits or another hornet empire. Rats. His face went from scared to disgusted in record time. Nobody likes rats. Nobody. Ryan especially hated them. As a carpenter's son, he'd watched rats chew through finished furniture his father had spent days building. Customers don't pay for gnawed table legs. Rats cost his family actual money. I grabbed a tusk lamp and did a full sweep of the cabin, checking every corner, every crack, every shadow. searching for evidence of invasion. Fortunately, the house was clean. No rat holes, no droppings, no tiny paw prints in my stuff. The house was safe. The cellar was not. It's the food, Ryan said, fuming from his bed. Our food attracted them. Of course it did. The one time we actually have enough provisions to survive winter, these disgusting little thieves show up to steal it. The timing was cosmically unfair. Months of hunting, smoking, drying, salting, and preserving. Months of building that cellar. And now a family of rats had moved in and declared it an all-you-can-eat buffet. We have to get rid of them, I said, already knowing how impossible that actually is. Here's the thing about rats that nobody tells you. You can't win. Not permanently. You can trap them, poison them, block their holes, burn their nests, and they'll still come back. They always come back. Fighting rats is like fighting the tide. You can hold it off for a while, but the ocean doesn't get tired and neither do rats. The real solution is a cat. Nature's perfect rat-killing machine. Cats don't get tired of hunting rats. Cats enjoy hunting rats. A cat would solve this problem while I sleep. Ryan, how much does a cat cost? He thought about it. A traveler from England once told me that in his kingdom, a newborn kitten costs 1 pfennig. One that catches mice costs 2. A skilled mouser costs 4. Not expensive. But the real problem, finding one. Cats are rare out here. Ryan had heard of a monastery to the west that kept some, but monks are notoriously stingy with their stuff. They'd probably charge me 10 times the normal price and make me pray for an hour as a processing fee. Next year, I muttered. We'll buy one next year. I looked down at Charlie. Charlie looked up at me. He's technically a hunting dog. Dogs can catch rats. But Charlie was now thigh-height and roughly the size of a small pony. Sending him into my cramped little cellar to chase rats would be like sending a bus through a hallway. He'd destroy more food than the rats ever could. No cats, oversized dog, winter blocking all travel. I was on my own. Step 1, evacuate the food. I couldn't leave my provisions down there getting nibbled on while I strategized. So Charlie and I opened the cellar hatch and started moving everything out, piece by piece, into the snowy yard. Charlie was incredibly useful for this. His nose detected rats before I could see them. He'd suddenly bark at a specific corner, and I'd chuck a rock at it. Every time a rat would come scrambling out and dart into the shadows. Like a furry radar system with anger issues. Good boy. We cleared layer after layer of stored food. Most of it was fine. Dried meat and salted meat aren't exactly rat favorites. Too tough and too salty. But as we reached the bottom layer, the smell hit me first. Then the visuals. Rat droppings everywhere, scattered across the floor like disgusting confetti. 2 pieces of dried deer meat lying there half-eaten, covered in tooth marks and soaked in rat urine, already rotting. Little tufts of rat fur stuck to the surface like tiny flags of conquest. We were here. We ate ye this. What are you going to do about it? 3 pieces of venison. Gone. 3 pieces I'd painstakingly hunted, butchered, and smoked. Stolen by animals the size of my fist. I was simultaneously nauseated and enraged. I shoveled the ruined meat out of the cellar and threw it into the snow. If I can't eat it, the rats definitely can't have it either. Spite is a valid preservation strategy. Deep in the west corner, the rat hole. Fist-sized opening in the dirt wall. Their front door. Their little highway in and out of MY food storage. Charlie, guard this hole. Anything comes out, kill it. Charlie crouched in front of the hole like a coiled spring, teeth bared, growling softly. The rats inside went dead silent. They could smell him. They could hear him. They were not coming out. I went back into the freezing night to gather supplies. Rocks, sticks, mud from the riverbank. Every trip outside felt like walking into a freezer. The cold bit through my rabbit hat and deer coat like they were made of tissue paper. My fingers went numb. My nose went numb. My will to live went numb. By the time I got back, Charlie's growling had faded to tired whimpers. He was freezing too. My dog was shivering in a hole, guarding me from rats, in December. This was not the dog's life either of us had imagined. Come on out, Charlie. I'll take it from here. I shoved rocks and sticks deep into the rat hole. I could hear them panicking inside. Frantic squeaking, tiny claws scraping dirt, the unmistakable sound of rodent hysteria. A quick pat on Charlie's back made him bark once, sharply, and the hole went silent again. Cowards. Mud went in next. Packed tight. Every crack sealed. Then I rolled a boulder in front of the whole thing for good measure. Sealed. Locked. Fortified, I stepped back, dusted off my hands, and exhaled. That should hold them. Temporarily. Temporarily. Because the rats will dig a new hole. They always dig a new hole. This isn't a solution. It's a speed bump. I've bought myself maybe a week before they burrow around the blockade and resume their all-you-can-eat lifestyle. But a week is enough. I have plans for these rats. Dark plans. Plans I'll execute tomorrow when it's daylight and my fingers can actually function. The food sat outside in the yard overnight, frozen solid in the snow. Honestly, the safest it had been in weeks. No rat alive is going to gnaw through frozen venison in a blizzard. I walked inside to discover that Ryan had crawled out of bed, dragged himself downstairs, and was stirring the pot of soup I'd completely forgotten about. The soup I'd started cooking approximately 1 rat invasion ago. My lord, the meat in the soup smells fine. No rat contamination. Also, he straightened up with determination in his feverish eyes. I'm almost better. Tomorrow, let me help you fight the rats. I looked at this skinny, pale, recently feverish 15-year-old standing barefoot on a cold floor, volunteering to go to war against vermin the day after nearly dying of medieval flu. Deal. Tomorrow we hunt rats. Ryan smiled. Charlie wagged his tail. Somewhere in my cellar, a family of rats was probably already digging their next entrance. Bring it on, you greasy little monsters. You have no idea what's coming. Ryan was up, fever broken, appetite restored, and absolutely vibrating with rage about the rats. This kid had watched rats destroy his father's carpentry his whole childhood. Gnawed chair legs, chewed table corners, lost income, lost customers. For Ryan, this wasn't pest control, this was personal. Let me help fight the rats tomorrow, my lord. His eyes were burning with the fire of a man who has a score to settle with rodents. 15 years old, barely recovered from medieval flu, and ready for war. I respected it. Deal. But first, eat your soup and let me make you a rabbit hat. Also, after the rats, we're building a brick kiln. A what? Priorities, Ryan. Priorities. Morning. Full gear. Rabbit hats. Pigskin gloves. Murder in our hearts. 2 humans versus 1 family of rats. The most ridiculous military operation in the history of warfare. We opened the cellar hatch, and I had Ryan jam some torches into the dirt walls for visibility. Left Charlie on guard duty topside, my last line of defense, my furry failsafe. We jumped in and started searching for new holes, because I knew they'd dig new ones overnight. That big mama rat wasn't going to let a few rocks and some mud stop her midnight snacking career. Found one near the sealed hole. Freshly dug, dirt still damp. My lord, there's another one over here, Ryan called from the other side. 2 new holes. One night, that enormous rat had excavated 2 emergency exits while I was sleeping. Respect the hustle. Hate the hustler. Doesn't matter if there's 2 holes or 20, I said with a grin that probably looked slightly unhinged. They're all dead today. Ryan, bring it in. Ryan scrambled up and returned with our secret weapon, the biggest clay pot I owned, filled to the brim with boiling water. He set it down carefully, steam rising from the lid like a witch's cauldron. He was wearing his pigskin gloves because that pot was hot enough to cook the hands off anyone who touched it bare. The plan was simple, beautiful, diabolical. Ryan would light a fire at Holby using white ash wood, a special tree whose smoke contains irritating oils that burn eyes way worse than regular smoke. Then he'd fan the smoke into the hole, driving the rats through their tunnel network toward hole A, where I'd be waiting, with the boiling water. Welcome to the exit, rats. Hot bath time. Ryan lit the wood and started fanning like his life depended on it. The smoke was nasty. Even standing upwind with his head turned, his eyes were watering. And this is where things get really interesting. The next part is already on Patreon. Don't want to wait? Watch it right now. Link in the description and pinned comment.